My Exquisite Wife. Not long after graduating from university, Zhao Yu Haoran unexpectedly ended up sharing an apartment with his superior at work, Lü Yanxi. Thanks to her strong recommendation, he managed to enter the company's management team. However, he soon found himself caught in a power struggle between two rival factions within the company. Determined to uphold his principles, Zhao Yu Haoran chose to fight against both sides. In the end, he and Lü Yanxi overcame the challenges and became a couple. Later, due to company restrictions, they decided to conceal their relationship. However, this led them into an even greater commercial conspiracy. In their new company, both of them attracted new admirers, gradually deepening the crisis of trust between them. Yet, the most irreconcilable conflict lay in their opposing desires. Each wanted the other to step back and focus on family to support their own career. However, both were at the peak of their professional ascent, unwilling to make compromises easily. Despite their deep love for each other, the harsh reality of their personal ambitions gradually pushed them further apart. Chapter 1, Pretending to be Strong. This is not a but, this is not a but. Zhao Yu Haoran silently chanted the 5-word mantra in his heart, forcibly restraining his right hand, which was eager to continue exploring. The woman lay in Zhao Yu Haoran's arms, inhaling the scent of his sweat, listening to his rapid heartbeat and breathing. She sensed something unusual. Her head remained lowered, unwilling to meet his gaze, while the back of her fair neck blushed as red as blood. Since she refused to look up, it worked out in Zhao Yu Haoran's favor. He tilted his head back slightly and glanced down along the neckline of her pajamas. There was a vague glimpse of something sigh. This little girl hadn't fully developed yet. Upon entering the room, Zhao Yu Haoran felt a sense of warmth. The space was tidy and clean, carrying a faint floral fragrance. The curtains, quilt, and pillows all had cartoon patterns, and the bedside was decorated with wind chimes and small ornaments. Every time he saw these little things, a sense of peace washed over him, as if all the hardships, sorrows, and darkness buried in his memory had been swept away. Zhao Yu Haoran carefully placed the woman on the bed and crouched down to gently massage her wound. After the bruising gradually subsided, he took out some antiseptic and cotton balls from his pocket and carefully applied them to her injury. "Yu, how did you know I was hurt?" the woman stammered with a trace of unease. "Millimeter," Zhao Yu Haoran responded absent-mindedly while tending to the wound, not thinking much about the question. "How did you know I was hurt?" she asked again. Har, how would I know? It was just a coincidence." Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly realized his slip of the tongue, but it was too late to take it back. If he tried to explain now, it would be as suspicious as trying to cover up a crime. The woman pressed on, unwilling to let it go. "Then why did you just happen to show up?" "I had to use the bathroom and came to borrow yours," Zhao Yu Haoran replied with a clever excuse, dodging the question. "You came to borrow the bathroom, but you had antiseptic and cotton balls in your pocket." "Oh?" Beads of sweat rolled down Zhao Yu Haoran's forehead. This summer is really hot. Anyway, I finished applying the medicine. You should lie down and rest. My stomach hurts, I need to use the toilet." With that, he bolted. "Wait a minute, that hole in the bathroom ceiling, was it you who made it?" the woman asked in a low voice. Bang! Zhao Yu Haoran crashed into the door again before scrambling into the bathroom like a startled mouse. During his training days, Zhao Yu Haoran led a very frugal lifestyle. He rarely attended gatherings that cost over 100 yuan, sticking to a routine of classes, sleep, and meals, sometimes even skipping the last one. When he had free time, he would stand on the balcony, gazing at the distant blue sky. Occasionally, he would glance at the neighboring balcony, and if he was lucky, he might spot some sexy lingerie hanging out to dry, sparking daydreams about his mysterious roommate's perfect figure. At the training center, most people sought connections to pass courses without attending. Out of a class of 30, barely 10 would show up, and Zhao Yu Haoran was never among them. He needed to use his time wisely to earn extra cash to support his living expenses. For days, he barely spoke to the woman next door, nor did he bother to find out who she really was. He didn't even know her name. All he knew was that she was wealthy. At first, Zhao Yu Haoran only wanted to pass the training exam and secure a position within the company. Another important reason was that he had once seen the woman's boyfriend, a well-dressed, handsome man who always drove a convertible. Judging by their interactions, their relationship was still in its honeymoon phase, and the guy was still in the show-off stage of dating a beautiful woman. He was a typical rich playboy. Zhao Yu Haoran knew he couldn't compare, so he never entertained any fantasies about the woman. Though the two were often seen together, her boyfriend never stayed overnight, which at least made life a bit easier for single Zhao Yu Haoran. Sitting at his desk working on a report, he suddenly felt his stomach grumbling loudly. Glancing at the clock, he realized it was already noon. Going out in the heavy rain was not an option, and when he called to order takeout, the restaurant refused, citing a rather convincing excuse not because they feared getting wet, but because they didn't want the food to be ruined by the rain. Just as hunger was about to drive him mad, he heard the sound of cooking from the kitchen. Whether it was a coincidence or a chain reaction, he slowly pushed open his door, pretending he needed to use the bathroom. Sure enough, the woman was cooking. When she finally brought a plate of food to the table, he didn't know how to react. He couldn't just shamelessly ask for a share, could he? After much internal debate, Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly remembered his emergency stash of rice noodles in his suitcase, the kind that needed to be soaked in boiling water. He had saved those noodles penny by penny, and now, in this desperate moment, they were his only salvation. But compared to her meal, his rice noodles seemed pitifully cheap. Maybe he could pretend to fetch hot water and somehow finagle his way into a proper meal? After all, under the same roof, she wouldn't let him starve, right? Clutching his bowl of rice noodles, he eagerly rushed to the kitchen. The sight of a plate of glistening, reddish-brown chicken wings next to a bottle of Coke made his mouth water. Could this be the legendary Coca-Cola chicken wings? He turned on the water dispenser, filling his bowl while staring at the dish until his vision blurred. Oh? You're up? Haven't eaten yet, right? The woman's voice suddenly came from behind him. Zhao Yu Haoran turned around, startled. Eat. I already ate. No, I'm just. The woman glanced at the bowl beneath the dispenser. You're just having this for lunch? And why are you pouring so much water? Crap. He had been so focused on talking that he forgot about the water. Now his bowl was overflowing, and the seasoning had completely washed away, leaving him with a bowl of plain hot water. He forced a smile. I like soup. The woman chuckled. Come eat with me. I made too much. And no need, I'm not that hungry, he quickly refused. The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. What a terrible lie. His stomach was practically glued to his back from hunger. But in the end, under her insistence, Zhao Yu Haoran stayed and indulged in a delicious meal. Through this meal, he finally learned something about the woman. Her name was Lü Yanxi. He only found out because her boyfriend called during lunch, loudly calling out her name over the phone. She had just graduated from university and was working part-time while preparing for graduate school. Chapter 2, Flattery. From that moment on, the parallel lines between Zhao Yu Haoran and this woman miraculously tilted. He continued his muddled life, but their occasional meetings were no longer just brief exchanges of smiles. If not for one impulsive moment, he would never have discovered this woman's second identity. That morning, Zhao Yu Haoran was sleeping soundly when a barrage of phone calls abruptly jolted him awake. Still groggy, he blindly pressed the answer button and heard Zhu Lin's voice. Whenever this guy called, it was never for anything good. It was almost certainly a problem. Just as he was about to hang up, Zhu Lin yelled, "Are you trying to hang up on me? Cut the nonsense and get up. Today is the last day for attendance in the jewelry marketing and design training." Zhao Yu Haoran rubbed his eyes, and upon hearing this, his mind exploded. Damn it. Since the very first class, he had never attended a single session. If he missed today's attendance check, he was doomed to fail. And unlike in college, failing here didn't just mean a make-up exam, it meant unemployment. In college, whether you passed or failed often depended on the professor's mood, which gave rise to the golden rule: mandatory courses must be skipped selectively, and elective courses must be skipped entirely. But in the real world, failing meant losing your job, and that was something he couldn't afford to take lightly. Without even washing up, Zhao Yu Haoran threw on a jacket and dashed out the door. When he arrived at the training room, he rushed in with his head down, hoping to go unnoticed. The instructor was enthusiastically lecturing, and their voice sounded oddly familiar. Zhao Yu Haoran's heart pounded as his feet refused to move forward. The instructor walked over and asked, "What's wrong? You know I work here. Why aren't you staying at home? What are you doing here?" A series of question marks swirled around in Zhao Yu Haoran's mind. This was Lü Yanxi's voice. Suddenly, he became the center of attention. Lü Yanxi's awkwardly phrased remark made it seem as if he had come here just to see her. The students below began to stir, whispering among themselves. Even Zhu Lin started muttering he had been friends with Zhao Yu Haoran for so long but had no idea he had a thing going on with their instructor. Zhao Yu Haoran swallowed nervously and muttered, "I'll just sit in the back." Lü Yanxi hesitated for a moment before letting him pass. As Zhao Yu Haoran walked toward the back, Zhu Lin waved him over. Sitting beside Zhu Lin, Zhao Yu Haoran asked, "Do you come here often?" "Thank God you called me today, otherwise, the company would kick me out." Zhu Lin hesitated, then stammered, "Me? Do I look like someone who regularly attends classes? I don't know what happened this morning, I had a weird dream, and, let's just say I woke up to a mess. After that, I couldn't fall back asleep, so I ended up here." Zhao Yu Haoran believed him. Given Zhu Lin's smooth-talking ways, he could land a decent job anywhere. Coming to this training was definitely not his usual style. After a few seconds of eye contact, Zhao Yu Haoran was about to open his notebook when Zhu Lin stopped him and whispered, "Haoran, you know the instructor?" Without thinking, Zhao Yu Haoran replied, "Yeah, she's my roommate." Zhu Lin stared at him in awe, as if he had just discovered a treasure. Honestly, even Zhao Yu Haoran himself hadn't expected Lü Yanxi to be his instructor. Fate was playing a ridiculous joke on him. 5 minutes later, Zhao Yu Haoran's phone started vibrating loudly. Thankfully, it was on silent mode, or he would become the center of attention again. The message was from the class monitor, who was only 3 seats away. Zhao Yu Haoran glanced at the text, "Let us have dinner together tonight." Then came another message from their vice monitor, then the academic officer. In no time, nearly all the class leaders had sent him dinner invitations. Zhu Lin leaned in and grinned. "Wow, you've gone from a nobody to the star of the class. Since everyone is so eager, we might as well accept, right? Let us head to that XJ roasted whole lamb barbecue place near the company after class." The saying, "you shouldn't accept undeserved rewards," had long been forgotten by someone who lived off instant noodles. Under Zhu Lin's persuasion, Zhao Yu Haoran readily agreed to the dinner invitation. While he was chatting with Zhu Lin, Lü Yanxi walked over and whispered, "I never expected you to be my student." "Yeah, I never expected my beautiful roommate to be my instructor, the ruling class, no less." Zhao Yu Haoran chuckled awkwardly. Lü Yanxi smiled but then turned serious. "Your attendance record." The moment she mentioned attendance, Zhao Yu Haoran, who had been relatively calm, immediately felt a sense of impending doom. "Oh, I know my attendance is a bit of an issue, but we can discuss it tonight, right?" he said with a nervous smile. Lü Yanxi closed her attendance book and smirked. "Oh? And how exactly do you plan to discuss it tonight? Trying to bribe me? Forget it, just focus on class." Zhu Lin, overhearing their conversation, added fuel to the fire. "Come on, just admit it. You two definitely have something going on. Otherwise, why would you need to discuss things at night?" Ignoring Zhu Lin, Zhao Yu Haoran went along with the group to the barbecue place after class. Since it was lunchtime, the restaurant wasn't too crowded. Everyone who came was a co-worker. As soon as Zhao Yu Haoran arrived, even colleagues who rarely spoke to him took the initiative to greet him warmly. The class monitor squeezed into the seat beside him, pushing Zhu Lin aside. Looking at Zhao Yu Haoran's slightly gaunt face, he commented, "Haoran, you haven't been eating well, have you? You've lost weight. Make sure to eat more tonight." The academic officer was even more dramatic, jumping to Zhao Yu Haoran's right and hugging him. With the 2 major class leaders flanking him, Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly felt a sense of unease. Thinking quickly, he said, "Aren't you guys hungry? My stomach's already growling." Chapter 3, Compromise. Zhao Yu Haoran stood up and said to their waiter, "Sister, let's order the roasted whole lamb." As soon as these words were spoken, those who wanted to get close to me looked at each other and finally shut up. Zhao Yu Haoran looked at the golden roasted whole lamb and the drool from his mouth was enough to drown the people around him. At this point, Zhao Yu Haoran had already guessed the reason why they invited him to dinner. While everyone was still praising Zhao Yu Haoran, he wanted to stick his head into the belly of the roasted whole lamb. The squad leader next to him was holding a bottle of wine and talking about something, but he just felt thirsty, so he snatched the beer from the squad leader's hand and gulped it down. He didn't have time to listen to the man farting next to him. The people around him were almost silent when they saw this. When he was about 90% full and felt a little uncomfortable, he looked up at his colleagues around him. Damn, none of them had even moved their chopsticks. "Hey, you guys eat." Zhao Yu Haoran said, pointing at the grill with half a lamb still on it. Zhao Yu Haoran saw the squad leader glance at Zhu Lin. Zhu Lin turned around and said to Zhao Yu Haoran very reluctantly, "Haoran, Ran. We are all old brothers. Can you help us? You know the rules of our company. If you fail the exam, let alone becoming a senior executive, it will be difficult for you to stay in the company. The only one who can talk to the higher-ups is." Zhao Yu Haoran expected this to happen, so he stood up and said, "Well, I have something else to talk about, let's talk about it next time." He had barely said half of his words when the door was blocked by a fat man. It seemed that escape was impossible. The squad leader whispered in Zhao Yu Haoran's ear, "It's not right for you to do this. You're going to run away after dinner? Everyone's happiness depends on you. This meal can be regarded as a token of our appreciation. It's not easy for us to work together to earn money, but in order to make a living, we still squeezed out this little bit of food from our mouths to treat you to a meal. Don't let everyone down." Zhu Lin also ran over without hesitation. He took out a piece of A4 paper and placed it in front of Zhao Yu Haoran and said, "Our Haoran is the most loyal person. The rest of the life of the person on this paper depends on you." Damn it, Zhao Yu Haoran cursed in his mind. Looking at the situation, if I don't agree to them today, I probably won't be able to walk out of this door. I'll go back and try it. Zhao Yu Haoran said. After this was said, everyone present finally breathed a sigh of relief. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Let's enjoy our meal. The roasted whole lamb is getting cold and the fishy smell is coming out." Zhu Lin said with a smile, "Haoran, didn't you say you had something to deal with? Go and do it quickly. Let's eat first." Damn it, these guys are such despicable, shameless, dirty and sinister scum of the world. Almost all the abusive words were used to curse at them. The depth of society was calculated by them, and what gave Zhao Yu Haoran the most headache was how to tell Lü Yanxi, whom he was not familiar with, about the matter of pardoning the world after returning. When he got home, he happened to see Lü Yanxi watching her favorite movie, Farewell My Concubine, on her phone before he even walked back to his bedroom. He stood at the door, embarrassed. Lü Yanxi heard the movement at the door, raised her head suddenly and said, "Why don't you come in?" Zhao Yu Haoran smiled awkwardly. "Are you here to bribe me?" Lü Yanxi said as she looked at the picture on the screen. Zhao Yu Haoran sat next to Lü Yanxi and looked at her pitifully, not knowing where to start. "I think we are about the same age, so I'll call you sister." Zhao Yu Haoran wanted to get closer to her and then have a good chat with her. Lü Yanxi hurriedly pushed his hand away and said, "Don't worry, I'm not as old as you. I looked at your file information, you are not even 1 day older than me." Zhao Yu Haoran was also smart, and called out affectionately, "Then, good sister, please help me. As long as you wave your hand, my future happiness will be settled. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda, don't you agree?" Lü Yanxi continued to look at the screen and said, "Give me a reason to help you first, and see if it is sufficient." He said pitifully, "We are all under the same roof, we can't see each other when we look up." "Stop, that reason is too cliché," Lü Yanxi said uninterested. Zhao Yu Haoran shamelessly coaxed and continued, "I'm already in my 20s. I've graduated for a few years. Although I don't have a wife or children, I'm old enough to get married and have children. If I don't find one, I'll miss the golden age of marriage. You can't bear to see me become an older bachelor, right? This is how you deal with women." Lü Yanxi said helplessly, "Okay, stop it now. If you continue, are you going to bring up our ancestors as well?" Zhao Yu Haoran praised, "My dear sister, you are not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted. How can there be such a good person in the world?" While the heat was on, Zhao Yu Haoran took out the life-saving bill that affected dozens of people from his pocket, handed it to Lü Yanxi respectfully and said, "Here, please be kind and pardon the world." After saying this, Zhao Yu Haoran didn't even dare to look at Lü Yanxi's expression and simply lowered his head. He saw Lü Yanxi pick up something on the table, and his heart was pounding. Sure enough, a few seconds later, Lü Yanxi scolded him, "Are you doing this on purpose? You are pushing your luck." Zhao Yu Haoran hurriedly told her everything that had happened to him today and prayed for her forgiveness. "If you hadn't been so close to me this morning, this wouldn't have happened," he said softly. "You really are blaming it all on me, aren't you?" Lü Yanxi said dissatisfiedly. Zhao Yu Haoran smiled and said, No, they deserve it. It's not impossible for me to help you, but you have to do 2 things for me. Lü Yanxi said. Seeing that things were turning around, Zhao Yu Haoran said excitedly, okay, let alone 2 things, even if it's 200 things, I'll do it. Lü Yanxi sat next to him and said, don't agree too early. The first thing you have to do is to help me carry the textbooks to class every day. Is it the first class every Wednesday morning? Zhao Yu Haoran asked. That morning really killed him. Lü Yanxi nodded. Okay, what about the second thing, he asked. Lü Yanxi pointed in the direction of her bedroom and said, I don't know what's wrong with my computer. It won't turn on. Go fix it for me. I also need to take a shower. Can you do these 2 things? Zhao Yu Haoran patted his chest and said, leave it to me. Thank you for your hard work. Lü Yanxi took her milky white bathrobe and went to the bathroom. Chapter 4, Dogs Rely on Their Superiors. Zhao Yu Haoran said disdainfully, hey, it's much better than when I was in college. How tidy can a single man's bedroom be? If you want to tidy it up, don't make it too clean, or I won't be used to living there. Then he walked out of the bedroom. At about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, Lü Yanxi called Zhao Yu Haoran and said, please help me deliver the sack I picked up yesterday downstairs. I'm waiting to go to the training room for class. Before Haoran could answer whether she was willing or not, the other party hung up the phone. Zhao Yu Haoran reluctantly carried the sack from the 17th floor to the place she specified. Hey, sister, why are you taking so many things to class? Zhao Yu Haoran asked breathlessly. Lü Yanxi looked at him and then squatted down to check the things inside and said, have you forgotten what day it is today? These days, apart from accompanying Lü Yanxi to eat and doing hard labor, Zhao Yu Haoran has been studying hard and basically turns a deaf ear to other things. Haoran asked in confusion, what's the matter? Is your boyfriend back to see you? Lü Yanxi pushed Zhao Yu Haoran and yelled, fuck you. Today is your graduation day. You have completed all the training courses. When you return to the company, you will take part in the interview with the CEO. Those who pass the interview can officially start working in the company. Zhao Yu Haoran opened his phone and looked at the calendar, muttering to himself, oh, today is really a big day. I've been so confused about it. It's become a mess. Okay, this place is not far from where we have classes, and there's no need to take a taxi. I'll carry you there. What do you think? The reason why Zhao Yu Haoran said this to me was not only because he thought that if he was admitted in the future, we would meet and do things together as colleagues, but more because he was reluctant to part with the beautiful Lü Yanxi. Lü Yanxi smiled and said, that's great, let's go over there. Zhao Yu Haoran excitedly picked up the sack and prepared to leave, but before he took a few steps, he was stopped by a few guys behind him. Judging from their non-mainstream appearance, they are probably around 17 or 18 years old, and none of them behaved well. The leader is a yellow-haired guy with a rusty gold-plated chain hanging on his chest. If you don't know, you might think he has been tying a dog before. Stop. Is your ears not working well or do your legs need to be punished? The yellow-haired boy kept cursing at the 2 of them. Zhao Yu Haoran was not afraid of this yellow-haired boy, but he was really unable to deal with the fat guys behind him. Before Zhao Yu Haoran could make a move, Lü Yanxi stepped forward and asked fearlessly, go back and tell that manly man that it's over between us. If he continues to pester me like this, I'm not someone you can easily mess with. I'll make him pay the price. These little brats just take advantage of the power of others and act impulsively. In today's society ruled by law, there will be consequences for hitting others. The yellow-haired boy shouted mercilessly, fuck you, go pee on the side of the road and see if you are worthy of our sister-in-law. Be careful with your words. He is me. Lü Yanxi wanted to speak anxiously, but was stopped by Haoran. Zhao Yu Haoran walked up to the yellow-haired boy and said, what's the matter? Does my appearance affect the city's appearance or the international image? You'd better get out of here. When I was hanging around here, you didn't even know where to play in the mud. Bullshit, don't you see how many people there are here? You want to fight? If not, just get out of here and don't waste my time. You dare to touch our boss's woman? It seems you are tired of living. The yellow-haired boy said confidently, and the other little villains laughed happily on the side. Zhao Yu Haoran is not afraid of death, but he doesn't want to cause trouble either. However, since the other party has provoked him to the point of no return, how can he survive in this world if he doesn't say a few words to save the situation? What? Do you want to outnumber others? You little bastard, I advise you to get away from me. I'm in a hurry to go to work and don't have time to deal with you. Go back to your mother and feed her, Zhao Yu Haoran said mercilessly. The two sides were on the verge of a fight, but neither was willing to give in. Seeing that Zhao Yu Haoran had not taken action, the yellow-haired boy mistakenly thought that he was afraid of their outnumbered people, and he became timid, so he became more aggressive and cursed. Damn it, find someone to come over here and let me take a look. I will beat people like you every time I see them. Zhao Yu Haoran's patience was once again teased by the yellow-haired boy. He took out his mobile phone and looked at the address book. There were only a few friends he could call earthly. Although he didn't have many friends, he wouldn't talk about those people he knew. After finding the monitor's phone number, the two of them hesitated for a while, and then said concisely, I encountered some trouble in the aisle in front of the training class. Someone wanted to pick a fight. The yellow-haired boy saw that Zhao Yu Haoran didn't say a word after the call, and thought that he didn't call anyone, so he deliberately said to Lü Yanxi sarcastically, Sister-in-law, look at who you like, he is not as good as my brother, he has money and a head. At the end of the road, he heard a group of people panting, and Zhao Yu Haoran knew that it was the group of grandsons coming over. The first one to run over was Zhu Lin, who is my best buddy. Behind him followed men, women, young and old from their class. It looked like there was going to be some fun today. Lü Yanxi was also dumbfounded. Haoran looked honest at ordinary times, but she didn't expect him to be so powerful at the critical moment. The fat guy from the training class ran all the way to Lü Yanxi and said, What's wrong, Haoran? Everyone was taking care of Zhao Yu Haoran because he held the power over the lives and deaths of his brothers, so naturally they had to flatter him. They want more from others, and we don't want to trouble you brothers, Zhao Yu Haoran said with a smile. Zhu Lin stood in front of them with a mighty figure. Those people immediately became timid and shouted, Which little idiot is looking for trouble? Stand up and let me know you. The yellow-haired boy trembled and said, No. No. I. Zhu Lin slapped him and said, Woni Mar, is it you? Damn it, you are tired of bullying us gangsters, you little bastard, do you want me to find a few more phone numbers for you to call more people? Zhu Lin and his group handed the phone over. The yellow-haired boy was quite courageous and went forward to take the phone. The squad leader slapped him on the right cheek and cursed, Fuck, I gave you face, didn't I? You dare to answer the phone. The force of the slap was a bit too strong. The boy fell to the ground with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. He squatted on the ground and didn't dare to say a word. Chapter 5, A Mistake. Today can be said to be the day when Zhao Yu Haoran dressed up the most exquisitely. He kept the leather shoes that he had kept for several years and was reluctant to wear. Today he also used the perfume that he had not used up from the last time he attended his good friend's wedding. He looked particularly energetic in a suit and tie. If Lü Yanxi saw this look, she might be completely fascinated by it. At 2 p.m., Zhao Yu Haoran arrived at their hotel for the interview on time, but there were only a few people in the lobby, which was far from what he had imagined. He sat down next to another man who was preparing for an interview. Just as he was about to talk to him, the man closed his eyes and muttered to himself, I. My name is Wang Jiaodong, from Ah Hefi, I'm 25 years old, I have a bachelor's degree, and I have been working in the joint venture for 5 or 6 years. I love the collective and take the collective interests as my highest starting point. I will never sell out the interests of the company and will never betray the company. It can be seen that the man is now extremely nervous and he drinks almost a whole glass of water on the table. The man closed his eyes for a few seconds, perhaps feeling unprepared for the interview. He stood up and ran, forgetting to take everything on the table. Zhao Yu Haoran hurriedly stood up and took a piece of paper from the table, calling the man, Brother, you didn't take your things with you, brother. After calling out several times without any response, Zhao Yu Haoran returned to his seat and spread out the paper, and saw a few large words interview notice for the position of general manager. Shit, this is an interview with the general manager. It's even better than being a director. I got such a big advantage by accident, I am really blessed by God. Zhao Yu Haoran was delighted, thinking that since this was something that no one else wanted, it would be a shame to throw it away, so he might as well make use of it himself. Zhao Yu Haoran is always vigorous and resolute in everything he does and never hesitates. As soon as he got the notice, he used his mobile phone to look through the cases he needed to answer, and prepared to spend dozens of minutes preparing for the interview with the general manager. Until, number 123, interview requested, the pager repeated. Picking up the interview number, Zhao Yu Haoran walked into the interview room with great dignity. Lü Wenhao didn't pay much attention to the young man who came in front of him. He just said casually, "Young man, did you come to the wrong place? You look different from the interview photo in my hand." Zhao Yu Haoran has been through systematic training, and his face is so thick that it cannot be described in words. He said confidently, "Well, then you don't need to look at the photo. My name is Zhao Yu Haoran, and I'm here for an interview." When Lü Yanxi, who was sitting next to Lü Wenhao, heard the name Zhao Yu Haoran, her eyes suddenly lit up and she sat up straight. She never thought that this brat would come for an interview now. Lü Wenhao asked in surprise, "What happened? Did you meet someone you know?" In order to avoid suspicion, Lü Yanxi directly rejected the question. "Oh, I don't know him, but I just feel familiar with the name. Mr. Lü, please start the interview." Lü Wenhao is a veteran in the world. He thought to himself that among all the men who came in before, Lü Yanxi was not interested in any of them. She reacted so strongly just by hearing the other person's name. The relationship must be unusual. Since Lü Yanxi did not admit it, he could only use a little trick. "I'm sorry, you are not the person we are interviewing. I want to ask, how did you come to this place?" Lü Wenhao asked. Zhao Yu Haoran said calmly, "I came in openly, and the receptionist outside led me here." Lü Wenhao smiled and threw the photo in his hand on the table and said, "You can go now. We will not admit strangers who have not gone through the procedures." "No way, I came here for an interview at another big company, but unexpectedly I was recruited by your people. Now I have missed the interview at another company. What should I do about my loss?" Zhao Yu Haoran said. Lü Yanxi, who was sitting in the front, said in a roundabout way, "Yes, Mr. Lü, why don't we break the line today and listen to it? If it really doesn't work, we can just let him go. It only takes a few minutes anyway." Only when Lü Yanxi was being careless did Lü Wenhao begin to reluctantly agree. "Please sit down. You will have 3 minutes to answer questions," Lü Wenhao said. Zhao Yu Haoran sat down, adjusted his tie, and got straight to the point. "I came here today purely by accident, so I didn't bring any resume. Instead of knowing me from a piece of paper, it's better to get to know me face to face. I used to work as a sales manager for Vision. You can check it out online to get to know me better." As soon as the words fell, Lü Yanxi looked it up curiously and showed it to President Lü. Mr. Lü squinted his eyes and looked at the introduction about him, saying, "Young man, the introduction about you is all some shameful things." Zhao Yu Haoran's hands trembled as he said, "Who would find fault with others for no reason? Those who find fault with others are those who are not as good as you. You should know that in order to attract attention and increase the chances of appearance, who cares whether their butt is clean or not? It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches the mouse, it is a good cat. This is my own principle. But at least the boss can make money. Unfortunately, I was covered in shit by others. Salespeople are like this. In order to maximize the interests of the company, they would rather sacrifice themselves." Lü Yanxi was stunned by what Zhao Yu Haoran said. She only knew that he was a little-known person before, and she didn't expect that he had such an experience. Seeing that the two people in the interview believed it, Zhao Yu Haoran felt a little proud. Those things were not what he had experienced at all. They were just entries he made on Baidu in his spare time. He didn't expect that they would play a role at the critical moment. God bless him. After listening to this, Lü Wenhao began to take some interest in the stranger in front of him and asked, "What's next? Your Xinjiang company is good in every way except that it is too clean. In order to clean their own butts, everyone is unwilling to do anything out of the ordinary. If things continue like this, sooner or later another group of wealthy people will be sitting in this building, and I am the one who is here to clean your butts." Zhao Yu Haoran analyzed. These things are things that the internal staff of Xinjiang company are very clear about, but the senior executives have been skirting the rules for their own interests, and no one dares to touch this forbidden area. If Lü Yanxi had not taught them before, outsiders like Zhao Yu Haoran would never have known these things. After Lü Wenhao and Zhao Yu Haoran looked at each other, they stood up and said to Lü Yanxi, "This person will be assigned to your department. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." But things don't always work out. The next day, before Zhao Yu Haoran could even show his skills, he and Lü Yanxi were dragged into a chaotic dispute. Because of the reorganization of the reform department, the company headquarters was bound to divide up some people's flesh and blood, which aroused the resistance of the conservative faction. That morning, the big boss invited the heads of various departments to gather in the private garden of the villa. The leading ministers, each with their own ulterior motives, brought their own thugs and ambushed around to prevent any accidents. Lü Yanxi and Zhao Yu Haoran, who were the executive secretaries of the board of directors, also went to the venue. Chapter 6, One Step to the Sky. Although the venue was not in any club, the atmosphere was still quite serious. The three big guys present at the meeting were Xinjiang Company's CEO Wang Laohu, Executive Committee Chairman Lu Wenhao, and Director Dao Lin. The three sat opposite each other in a triangle. Due to their hierarchy, Zhao Yu Haoran could only follow behind Lü Yanxi to take notes on the spot. Seeing that the two were silent, Wang Laohu asked directly, "Dao Lin, tell me why the headquarters promoted you." Dao Lin's mouth was as sweet as honey, and he said flatteringly, "Because I am loyal to the company, care about employees, and support you, I love you very much." These two sentences made Wang Laohu laugh so hard that he couldn't stop smiling. Then he turned to Lu Wenhao and asked, "Lu Wenhao, then tell me the reason for promoting you. You seem to be honest and don't associate with these second-rate people." Lu Wenhao replied politely, "The boss promoted me because I can get the biggest profit for the company with the smallest cost. Who would be so stupid as not to use employees who can earn money for themselves? If you nominate Dao Lin will definitely not be able to bear this burden. Our company's sales channels will definitely be affected to varying degrees. If sales are affected, then the profit will fall." Wang Laohu wiped the sweat off his hands with a towel and said, "Your analysis is correct. It is consistent with the analysis of the big guys on the board of directors. In fact, all of us are quite inclined to nominate you. You have a bright future and I am very optimistic about you." Wang Laohu paused for a few seconds, glared at Dao Lin, and said, "How much was your department's sales last quarter?" Dao Lin put his hands together and whispered, "About 5,005. Wang Laohu said dissatisfiedly, "It's only 50 million. Compared with Lu Wenhao's, it's not even a fraction. If it really doesn't work, then don't do it. Then Wenhao, first transfer 50 million from you to Dao Lin's department, and then you can get some money to give to the higher-ups. I will send you the detailed figures in a few days." There is always an indescribable temperament about Lu Wenhao. No matter what the matter is, he can make a big deal out of a small matter. After the meeting, the winner is always ecstatic, while the loser can only leave in despair. Lu Wenhao stood up and said to the boss, "Thank you, boss, for the promotion. There is nothing else to do. I will go back to work first." Wang Laohu said immediately, "After you go back, tell those young men under you not to worry about this or that. As long as they do a good job, they can stay in this company for a long time and enjoy endless wealth and glory." Dao Lin also remained silent at this moment, knowing that his performance was not as good as others, so how could he have a say? But the palms and backs of the hands are all made of flesh. If you only give flesh to the palms, the backs of the hands naturally won't be happy. This is what we call giving a slap in the face and then giving a date. After Lu Wenhao left, Lü Yanxi and Zhao Yu Haoran continued to stay at the venue. Wang Laohu said to Dao Lin, "Then let's just leave it like this for now. You can wait until the company grows stronger and then I will promote you. Don't be dissatisfied at all." Dao Lin stood up angrily, just nodded and sneered, "Yeah." After walking out, Lu Wenhao waited for Dao Lin in the lobby outside. He wanted to comfort this old colleague, but before he could say anything, Dao Lin pointed at Lu Wenhao's nose and said arrogantly, "Fuck you, I just don't accept it. You're just a burden who came along halfway. Just wait for me." Through the glass, Wang Laohu saw that if the two groups of people outside just started to fight each other, sooner or later they would fight each other. There must be a separate and independent department to balance the two forces. While Wang Laohu was thinking deeply, Lü Yanxi walked up to him and said, "Boss, can we leave now?" Wang Laohu looked up and saw that it was Lü Yanxi. He was so busy talking to the two men that he forgot about this beautiful woman. He hugged Lü Yanxi's tender waist and stopped her. He smiled lewdly and said, "Are you interested in working in a new department? You can help me keep an eye on these two guys fighting among themselves." Lü Yanxi is a smart person. How could she not know the boss's intention? But she was not strong enough to take on such an important task. Just as she was about to refuse, Zhao Yu Haoran said, "Okay, Sister Yanxi, and I can take on the responsibility." Wang Laohu pushed Lü Yanxi away from his legs, took a breath and said, "Who are you?" Lü Yanxi explained, "This is a new colleague who came a few days ago. Seeing Zhao Yu Haoran volunteering himself and being so ignorant of the world, it was really the most appropriate thing to find such a person as a scapegoat. Lü Yanxi originally wanted to refuse, but after being manipulated by Zhao Yu Haoran, she became very passive. Well, I think this young man has a bright future. Yanxi, you should learn from him. You should be transferred to the confidentiality department. Your main job is to help me keep an eye on any abnormal behavior of low-level employees. You can report to me at any time. Wang Lao, who issued a personnel order directly in front of Lü Yanxi. In this way, Zhao Yu Haoran became a prominent figure in the company. Within 3 days, he achieved a position that others might not be able to achieve in 3 years. With his own ambitions, he began to fight for his own world. After walking out of Wang Lao's private manor, Lü Yanxi scolded Zhao Yu Haoran like a volcano erupting on the road. Are you mentally ill, or is there something wrong with your hearing? Don't you know that this is clearly a trap? And you are so stupid as to get involved in it. I really don't understand what you are thinking. Zhao Yu Haoran turned his head away and dared not look directly at him, muttering softly, "What if I drill it, and what if I don't drill it? It all depends on whether I am willing or not." Seeing that she had no way to convince Zhao Yu Haoran, Lü Yanxi softened her attitude and begged, "Don't take it seriously. There are really a lot of tricks involved." Zhao Yu Haoran frowned and asked in confusion, "Why? I finally got this opportunity. If I don't grasp it well, my future will be like those students in the training class, earning a meager salary all day long and having no chance of getting in touch with the upper-class life." Lü Yanxi patiently explained, "I know you have had a lot of difficulties, and I also know what kind of life you led before, but you have to believe me this time. The department you are entering is different from any place you have worked before, and there is no room for any crooked ways." Zhao Yu Haoran bit his lip and asked, "Wait a minute, are you referring to me by the evil ways? Our company is full of hard-nosed people who will eat people without spitting out bones. We need down-to-earth people. Your burden is really too great." Chapter 7, Into the Tiger's Den. The night market in the northern city is the world of young people. A group of people came out like night owls. Zhao Yu Haoran followed his boss Lü Yanxi to inspect the work below. This was the first time he officially went to work since taking office. The ignorant young man followed with pen and paper. After getting off the car, Zhao Yu Haoran was stunned again. After he walked into those stores obediently, he found that they were really dog meat under the guise of sheep meat. The front were some legitimate shops for buying clothes. Once the identity was verified, he would be taken to the secret door in the back. Behind the secret door was the world of that group of young people. As agreed in advance, Zhao Yu Haoran had already notified Cao Wenshuan before coming in and sent him the location. Cao Wenshuan knew that these bullies were all surrounded by top-notch masters, so he naturally did not dare to underestimate them. Therefore, he took great pains to dress up for tonight. A small passenger car drove up not far from the night market. To put it bluntly, it was a plainclothes police car. It was decorated like this in order not to attract other people's attention. Although the car was small, it had everything it needed, including video monitors, command desks, heavy weapons. Just when Cao Wenshuan was fully armed, a police officer next to him saw rows of luxury cars outside and sighed, "Did we come to the wrong place? This is simply a luxury car exhibition." Although the young police officer's voice was not loud, Cao Wenshuan heard it. He went up to him and patted his head and said, "One thought of heaven, today we are here to arrest these people. Don't look at their prominent appearance in front of others, they may be doing something shameful behind the scenes." The plan previously formulated by the police force was for this group of mobile forces to disguise themselves as local industrial and commercial departments, conduct investigations inside first, and then carry out arrest operations. For this purpose, the police force also equipped them with micro-probes that had just been introduced from abroad, and the weapons were also varied and dazzling. After getting off the car, Cao Wenshuan first bypassed the legitimate shop in front as a veteran player and came to the underground illegal video game center. The front and the back are like two different worlds. It is quiet in the front, but there is noisy and harsh noise in the back. Some people are crying for joy because they won some money, and some unlucky people are venting their anger on the machines. The scene is very chaotic. A woman dressed in a bikini and wearing a straight line, holding a megaphone, kept tempting the crowd, "Hurry, hurry, hurry, the sooner you open the game, the sooner you open the game, the sooner you can play and make a lot of money. If you are slow, you can only watch others play." Then more ladies jumped out from somewhere. From their appearance, You could tell that they were not innocent girls but female college students from the neighborhood who sold their bodies for a little extra money. Confused, Cao Wenxuan just squeezed into the crowd and saw a scene that he often saw on TV. A middle-aged woman hit the man in the face with a slipper and kept cursing, "You bastard, you even lost your daughter's dowry money just to play esports. Are you still a man?" Looking at the surroundings, I saw a group of elementary school students who were only 5 or 6 years old squatting on the ground doing their homework, while the people sitting in front of them playing games were their caretakers. The scenes were shocking. Cao Wenxuan informed the police car outside of the contents through their micro-probe. They were all illegal gambling video games. He originally wanted to implement plan number 1, but there were many minors inside and it would be bad if innocent people were hurt. Moreover, there were good and bad people there, which would definitely bring a lot of unnecessary trouble. Although he was from the National Security Agency, he would definitely be punished if he didn't eat well. Cao Wenxuan called the policeman in the police car and asked them to notify the local police to call the informant. Normally, the local police would just go in to perform their official duties and would not alert the criminals. It was really a perfect idea to ask them to clear the area first while he searched for evidence inside. But within a few minutes, some not-so-good news came from the police car. "Captain, I just called the police to report the case, but they said that this place had just been inspected a few days ago, and there were only legal video games in there, no illegal ones, so they refused to accept the case." The police officer replied. This really made Cao Wenxuan angry. No wonder ordinary citizens would not take the initiative to call the police when they encounter lawbreakers, but choose to accept it. It seems that this is a very important reason. Cao Wenxuan bit his lip and said, "Then you can inform them that there are people selling drugs and carrying guns here. If that doesn't work, don't tell them that there are people selling prostitution here. I don't believe that these policemen will not come." After hanging up the phone, Cao Wenxuan found a place with few people. There were special people on duty there, and a special membership card was required. There was also a warning written on it saying the computer room is a restricted area and no entry for unauthorized persons. He first tried to contact Zhao Yu Haoran, but found that his cell phone signal had been blocked. Apart from the high-frequency radio he carried with him to contact the outside world, he had no other way to use it. If he continued to move forward, his identity would surely be exposed. As a last resort, Cao Wenxuan learned that another group of plainclothes police officers had taken someone else's membership card and sneaked in. Through the instantaneous meetings transmitted back by the micro-probe, it can be clearly seen that the outside is completely different from the inside. After swiping the card to enter, the first scene that comes into view is a few vixen dancing on poles in a steel cage. Rich people keep throwing money into it, asking the dancers inside to perform various moves for their entertainment. Sure enough, when the group of police officers just entered, the strict checking system had already detected it. The security room notified the patrol officers, "The identity of the man who just entered the venue is questionable. The membership card they used is an invalid document that was reported lost last week. Please verify their identity information immediately." The police officers came to a gaming machine and couldn't understand the various buttons. The receptionist came up and explained, "Sir, this machine was imported from abroad by our company. It can only play games on the main console. You just need to pay the bet amount." After the police came out of the base, how could they have any cash on them? They didn't say anything, just smiled and hurried away. Just when everyone was busy inside, the police from the outside area happened to drive a police car into the night market with great fanfare. As expected, they heard that someone was engaging in prostitution and drug trafficking more actively than anyone else. Chapter 8, Alerting the Snake. The emergency handling capability in esports games is also quite fast. After receiving the police's visit from inside, the control personnel in the computer room immediately ordered the operator inside through the intercom to reverse the screen and change the previous gambling screen into a normal game interface. The venue was filled with the voices of waiters and operators, asking people to change game discs and quickly change clothes. Such changes naturally caused abuse from buyers who had already paid. After all, they had paid to come here to have fun, and they had already lost their capital before they even earned any money, so they immediately started to criticize. A man in his 30s grabbed an airport manager, pointed his fist at him and said, "What do you mean by this? We just lost all our money." The scene was in chaos. The person in charge had no choice but to say, it's okay. There was a problem with our machine, and it will be fixed soon. Enjoy yourselves. We have blocked the area. Those policemen outside are just on duty. Don't panic. Even though they wanted to use money as bait, people nowadays are very smart and it is impossible for them not to know what happened, but they cannot say anything because they are weak and alone. The plainclothes policeman who had just broken into the members' venue had been knocked unconscious by an electric baton and lay motionless on the ground. The police car's micro-probes had already learned that the identities of some plainclothes policemen had been exposed. When they passed the message to Cao Wenshuan, the police investigating pornography, gambling and drug-related crimes broke in. Cao Wenshuan then ordered the remaining plainclothes policemen to hold on for 10 minutes. If they were allowed to act after 10 minutes, they should act in unison. The uniformed policeman with a big belly stood in the crowd and said to the person in charge, "We have received reports that you are engaging in prostitution, gambling and drugs here." The man in charge took the police chief to a deserted place, pulled out a bunch of $100 bills from somewhere, and stuffed the money into the policeman's pocket while grinning and saying, brother, there are no drug dealers here. There must be some people who lost money and are upset and want to make trouble. Brother, this place was found by our brother Wenhao, shouldn't you give him some face?" Seeing that it was about to work, the person in charge asked the waiter to bring a few jade bottles and said, "Brother, our boss knows that you like to collect some bottles and jars on weekdays, and he specially ordered me to prepare some ceramics from the Republic of China period for you today. You can exchange them for some pocket money and treat it as a meal for us brothers." The big-bellied policeman smoked a cigarette and turned his head to take a look. He yelled at the young policeman beside him, "What the hell are you doing standing there? Go find a girl, hurry up and get on with it." The young police officer was so frightened by the words of the big-bellied policeman that he could not speak. He hurried forward to catch the call. In order to prevent the people from seeing it, he also specifically ordered the young police officer to walk behind. Seeing this, Cao Wenshuan was naturally very curious. The police came here and did not handle the case. Didn't they know that they should be grateful to the police and take advantage of the police? He also followed quietly. When they were almost at the door, the little guy in the police uniform called out to the waiter next to him, "Hua, please take this guy to the pawn shop next door to exchange for some money. It's a bit inconvenient for me to wear the police uniform." Cao Wenshuan understood everything at once. If the police could be so close to the waiters here, then the people above them must be so close. No wonder the people did not dare to report it. With such a chain of relationships, even if they reported it, it would have no practical effect and would only bring trouble to themselves. Just as Cao Wenshuan was about to return, he was unexpectedly spotted by the security personnel on the scene. "Sir, please wait a moment. This is a restricted area of the venue. No one who is not invited can come in." Two security guards sandwiched Cao Wenshuan in the middle. Even if Cao Wenshuan was a good fighter, I'm afraid he would have no choice but to surrender and worry in the face of such a situation. But if he was really caught like this, there would be no way out, so he had to escape no matter what. He used the walkie-talkie to notify the plainclothes police inside and started to move closer to him and gather around. After the action took place, within 5 minutes, there was no intact part of Cao Wenshuan's body, and all of it had turned either blue or red. After the three plainclothes policemen gathered, Cao Wenshuan took a sack from a waiter, intending to use it to block the punches and kicks for himself, but the security guard was too powerful, and the sack broke right in the middle. It was filled with money laundered in the casino, which floated down from all directions like rain. The spectators in the middle of the casino still haven't figured out what is going on. They are all rushing to pick up money. The security personnel on the scene are stuck in the middle and can't move at all. Cao Wenshuan and his group of plainclothes policemen took advantage of the chaotic crowd and realized that it was impossible for them to leave from the place they had originally entered, so they ran towards the path that had been scouted in advance and escaped. This trail was originally an underground project of the Water Conservancy Department. Later, due to insufficient funds, the contractor was forced to suspend construction. After the trail was bought by the casino, it became their pipeline for treating sewage. Cao Wenshuan walked along the path with his body bent, and from time to time he could smell a foul smell, which was very uncomfortable. It is true that when people are unlucky, even drinking a glass of cold water will get stuck in their teeth. When Cao Wenshuan was trying so hard to run out from the bottom of the pipe, he never imagined that this pipe actually led to the center of a busy road outside. As soon as he emerged from the pipe, a speeding car came speeding towards him and almost trapped Cao Wenshuan's lower body in the pipe forever. After this mess tonight, Cao Wenshuan's plan did not help Zhao Yu Haoran gain the trust of gang leaders such as Lü Wenhao. Instead, it aroused their vigilance. Normally, these plainclothes policemen would never have the chance to sneak in, but since Zhao Yu Haoran got promoted, their underground business has become increasingly difficult. After alerting the enemy, Lü Wenhao became even more cunning. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for him to go out alone. Even if he went to the toilet, there had to be guards standing at the door. But Lü Wenhao and others are the kind of people who will never let go of a grudge. Although they have no evidence that Zhao Yu Haoran has defected, Lü Wenhao still wants to kill a chicken to scare the monkeys, so that Zhao Yu Haoran will know which side to stand on in the future. Chapter 9: A Huge Mystery. The next morning, Lü Wenhao and Dao Lin bypassed Lü Yanxi and called Zhao Yu Haoran to a golf course alone. The two men were lying on chairs, surrounded by several naked beauties serving them, while Zhao Yu Haoran stood in front of them and watched them quietly enjoy the massage. After a while, maybe the masseur was too strong or something, Dao Lin suddenly hugged a beautiful woman and screamed, "Oh, it hurts." The woman's clothes were almost torn off. On the other side, Lü Wenhao closed his eyes and gritted his teeth in a tepid manner, without making any exaggerated expressions. The masseur was an old man, and he saw that something was wrong. He had clearly put in a lot of effort, but the man didn't react at all. After increasing his strength to no avail, the masseur said, "Boss, if you have time, I suggest you come and massage more often. This will open up your ren and tong meridians and activate blood circulation in your tibia." Dao Lin laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Lu's ren and tong meridians still need to be opened." Hearing Dao Lin's voice, the old man smiled and said, "Yes, the boss's health is a little poor. The yin and yang in his body are out of balance. He needs to be properly adjusted." The waitress leaned on Lü Wenhao's shoulder and said with a smile, Har, then you have to tell me what's wrong with our boss." The old man explained, "I massage that part of his body. If it hurts, it proves that the part is weak." Dao Lin smiled at Lü Wenhao and said, "Boss Lü, you didn't scream like me. Is his health worse than mine? It's really funny." Seeing that everyone didn't believe what he said, the old man in front of him was a little anxious. He said hurriedly, "That only shows that the boss has a strong willpower. He can endure the pain. For example, his heels are a little yellow, which is a sign of kidney deficiency. If he is not treated in advance, he is likely to suffer from kidney deficiency and premature ejaculation in the future, which will have a certain impact on his sex life." The old man was so focused on his own quick words that he didn't notice the change in Lü Wenhao's expression at all. In front of so many people, especially Zhao Yu Haoran, he originally wanted to kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, but now he has become a joke to others. The old man's words drew laughter from the women nearby. To prove his words, the old man added, "Now that I hear your laughter, I can conclude that what I said is correct. This boss must have kidney deficiency. There is no doubt about it." Lü Wenhao took out several thousand yuan from his wallet and put it in the old man's hand, saying, "Old man, you are right. This money is your reward." The old man was so happy when he touched the money. It was enough for him to work several days less. However, when the old man took the money, he did not notice the sharp knife in Lü Wenhao's hand. Lü Wenhao held the old man's hand and said with a smile, "Old man, you are so good at calculating, then let me ask you, do you know what this is?" The old man was so happy that he didn't even look at it for a moment, and said directly, "This is a knife for peeling fruit." "But this knife has many other uses, did you know?" Lü Wenhao asked. Zhao Yu Haoran, who was standing in front of him, had a premonition that something very exciting was about to happen, and Lü Wenhao would never tolerate someone insulting him in front of him. The old man smiled and said, "I know, this knife can also be used to cut meat. When I cook at home and the kitchen knife is a bit blunt, I will use this knife to cut meat." As soon as the old man finished speaking, Lü Wenhao stood up suddenly, pressed the old man's hand on the table, and used the sharp knife to pierce a big cut on his hand. The effect of the white knife going in and the red knife coming out made Zhao Yu Haoran dumbfounded. The 10 fingers are connected to their heart, which is enough to imagine how painful it would be. The old man yelled in pain, attracting the security guards outside, who mistakenly thought that their boss was being attacked. Lü Wenhao said to Xiao Luo who came in, "Take him to the bathhouse in the back and use the knife in my hand to make this old man understand what severe kidney deficiency means. You bastard, you are talking nonsense here seriously and you still want to make money from me." Zhao Yu Haoran stood aside and didn't dare to make any sound. He suddenly understood in a trance that the reason why Lü Wenhao behaved like this was just to show him, so that he could understand his cruelty and cut off his retreat. Zhao Yu Haoran was suddenly squeezed in the middle, with threats from Lü Wenhao, Dao Lin and others in front of him, and the police from the National Security Center staring at him from behind. In order to ease Lü Wenhao's embarrassment, Zhao Yu Haoran stepped forward and said sternly, "Take him away first." Then he smiled and said to the big guys next to him, "With this kind of medical skills, he still comes out to give people massages. He really has his eyes stuck in his ass. He doesn't even need to be serious when he comes out. He still calls himself a miracle doctor. He is really an idiot hired by a monkey." Seeing that someone had found a way out for him, Lü Wenhao was no fool. He picked up the wine glass, patted Zhao Yu Haoran on the shoulder and said, "Little brother, you are right. Let's drink, drink. When I return to the company at noon, because of the police's visit yesterday and the instigation of Cao Wenchuan and others, a large group of media reporters blocked the headquarters of Xinjian Company, waiting to interview Lü Wenhao. This naturally included Lü Yanxi, who exercised the director's supervisory power as an independent department. As soon as Lü Wenhao showed up, he was immediately swarmed by reporters. Standing in the front was Lü Yanxi. Facing his former subordinate, Lü Wenhao never thought that this woman would embarrass him at this critical juncture. During the questioning, many of the questions involved Lü Wenhao's personal gambling in esports. The tone was extremely sharp, leaving Lü Wenhao a little confused. Although Lü Yanxi was once Lü Wenhao's former subordinate, she had naturally heard about some of his shameful deeds, but that was only what she heard. Everything she did was legal and compliant. Now, as a supervisory department, she would certainly not miss any opportunity that might be missed. In this respect, she was quite similar to Zhao Yu Haoran. Seeing that Lü Wenhao had no way to leave the stage, Sangu, as his spokesperson, was very anxious. He smiled and said to Lü Yanxi, "Today's meeting ends here. I'm really sorry. Mr. Lü Wenhao has to go to the opening ceremony of Hope Primary School now." In the chaos, Sangu kicked Lü Yanxi's knee hard with the heel of his leather shoe from the steps, and she almost fell to her knees in pain. Lü Yanxi is really starting to hold a grudge now, not because of Sangu's kick, but because she can vaguely feel that there is a huge mystery behind it waiting for her to solve bit by bit. Chapter 10, Disaster. Lü Yanxi smiled and waved her hand to signal Zhao Yu Haoran not to worry. She would handle it carefully. Zhao Yu Haoran understood that the guests were guests, so he did not continue to say anything. "What do you want, brothers?" Lü Yanxi walked over and asked with a sweet smile. It's no wonder that after Lü Yanxi took off her company's professional attire, she seemed to have completely changed. If you didn't know her, you would think she was a woman who took care of her husband and children, not a professional woman. 10 grilled kidneys, 20 grilled frogs, and 2 fish as well, some of the other things, and a dozen bottles of snow beer, and we'll talk about the rest later. A fat thug shouted loudly, who seemed to be the leader inside. "Okay, wait a moment." Lü Yanxi wrote down the customers' orders one by one, then tore off the list and pasted it next to Zhao Yu Haoran's barbecue stall, and opened the freezer to take out a dozen bottles of beer. "Uncle Zhang hasn't come yet, so I have to clean up this mess by myself. Brother's wine is here, please enjoy it slowly," Lü Yanxi said as she opened the bottle cap swiftly, took out the cup and placed it in front of the people. A thug with purple hair winked at the old man, who turned his head in confusion, and his eyes immediately lit up. He grabbed Lü Yanxi's clothes as she was about to turn around and get busy. Lü Yanxi's inner clothes had a zipper, so as long as a slit was opened, the back would slide down by itself. He said with a smile, "Girl, you can see that so many brothers have come to drink, and we can't drink without a woman to accompany us. How about you accompany us? Brothers will come to take care of your business often in the future." Seeing the fat old man grinning and showing his golden teeth, Lü Yanxi felt a sour feeling in her heart. She wanted to vomit. She forced a smile and said, "Brother, I'm sorry, I don't work here, I'm just here to help people. I have to drive away soon, I'm really sorry." Lü Yanxi hurriedly pushed away the man with gold teeth and put on her clothes again. "It's okay. We brothers are all in this for a living. It seems that the one helping others here must be driving an electric car worth hundreds of thousands of yuan. We brothers are all veterans. Just sit on my lap and drink. Whatever loss you suffer today will be charged to me, and you don't have to worry about anyone else," the fat man said as he pulled Lü Yanxi into his arms again. When the man said this, his tone was full of disdain, and he didn't take anyone seriously at all. "Ah, sir, don't be like this, I'm going to call for help." Lü Yanxi screamed. Zhao Yu Haoran, who had been staring at this place, turned pale. He squeezed the tongs into an iron bar and could no longer separate them. According to his temper, he had to beat that man up today. However, if he did it himself, Uncle John's life would be in trouble in the future. After all, he had elderly parents and young children to support, and he was counting on this barbecue stall to bring him some income, so he could only suppress his anger. Zhao Yu Haoran walked over with a charming smile, nodded and bowed, saying, "My dear brothers, I am still young and don't know how to drink. I will toast you 3 cups on his behalf. From now on, if you come to my stall, you will get a 20% discount. Please be kind and let me go." Par. 5 clear finger marks appeared on Zhao Yu Haoran's face. His face quickly became red and swollen. "Who do you think you are? Just toasting me, so what? Why should I give you face? Who the hell are you? You're just a barbecue vendor, what kind of person is that?" The shirtless Khan spat and said disdainfully. The other brothers echoed him, cursing and yelling at him to get out. But before he finished speaking, Zhao Yu Haoran heard another sharp sound. When he turned his head, he saw that the big man also had 5 more marks on his face, and... "Who do you think you are? You dare to hit the man in front of you? Even if he is a barbecue seller, it is a legitimate job. What about you? You only do petty and sneaky things, and you think you are so great. You are just a bunch of maggots." Lü Yanxi stared at the guy who slapped Zhao Yu Haoran, her eyes almost spitting fire. Her right hand trembled slightly, obviously because she hit too hard just now. Zhao Yu Haoran never thought that he would be protected by a powerless woman. He was overwhelmed with emotions and didn't know what to say. It was quiet, deathly quiet all around, and no other sounds could be heard in the bustling city. Everyone stared at the slender Lü Yanxi with their mouths wide open. The gangsters were unable to react for a moment. Zhao Yu Haoran didn't care about Uncle John's barbecue stall anymore. He grabbed Lü Yanxi from the gangster and pulled her behind him. Seeing Zhao Yu Haoran's actions, the hooligans realized that Z's grandson was going to start fighting. They started to quarrel and took down the table legs to force Zhao Yu Haoran and his men. "You stinky bitch, you dare to hit our boss? Do you know that this street is protected by our big brother? Come here quickly, kneel down and apologize. Cut them, damn, they are so brave. This pair of dogs. Boss, are you okay?" The people in the audience began to become restless, but no one dared to take the lead. After all, they were all second-rate guys. They could scare people normally, but they would be scared once a real fight started. The shirtless boss who was slapped laughed out loud, looking at Lü Yanxi hiding behind Zhao Yu Hao with a cruel murderous intent. "Okay, this little girl is attractive. I'm determined, brothers, smash the stuff." "Good. Don't want." It was too late for Lü Yanxi to shout. The gangsters received the order from their boss and started smashing things everywhere. The oven, freezer, table, stools, everything they saw was smashed to pieces. "Don't be like this, let's talk it out. They are just children." A middle-aged woman who was eating barbecue here just now spoke up to intercede. "Get out of here, you bitch." A gangster kicked the woman to the ground and kicked her in the stomach again. The woman screamed miserably, covering her stomach. Wife, are you okay? Wife, I beg you, someone please help me, call an ambulance." The woman's husband hugged his wife's twitching body and cried bitterly. When Zhao Yu Haoran noticed this, the woman was already lying on the ground unconscious. The bloodstains beneath his body were like a gradually shrinking chicken, stork flour, dazzlingly red. Zhao Yu Haoran's face darkened. "If a tiger doesn't show its might, people will think I'm a sick cat." Chapter 11, Affectionate. "Something seems to have happened over there. Boss, should we go take a look?" A policeman who was drinking in a small restaurant opposite them put down his glass and asked his colleague in front of him. This person was none other than Zhao Yu Haoran's nemesis Cao Wenxuan. "You want to go and see? What do you want to see? What's there to see?" Cao Wenxuan said slowly while sipping the fragrant wine in the glass. "Boss, it seems like something really happened over there," the young policeman said, recalling the incident. Har over there. That's not our duty area. Why are we running over there? Come, let's drink." "What did I say just now?" "Yes, the models in that company are really plump and have super kung fu skills. They should be female soldiers from the army. I can't handle it well, just turn a blind eye," some things are beyond our control. Cao Wenshuan actually knew what was happening over there, but he didn't want to help unless it was a critical moment. He wanted to let Zhao Yu Haoran understand that at this dilemma, he was his only god. However, what Cao Wenshuan didn't know was that the current Zhao Yu Haoran is no longer the little guy he used to be. His status in the company has risen rapidly, and he has a lot of people at his disposal. But if he calls on anyone at this time, it would be a bit unreasonable, so he chose to handle the matter himself. But the young policeman wanted to say something, but when he saw the expression on his boss Cao Wenshuan's face, he sighed heavily and drank the large glass of draft beer in front of him. Zhao Yu Haoran's palms were sweating, he clenched his fists tightly, and the corners of his mouth were bleeding from biting his teeth. This situation rarely occurred to him. Now Lü Yanxi no longer made any sound, lying quietly on the ground, and her angry roars continued to reach Zhao Yu Haoran's ears. "All right, brothers, stop smashing. Damn it, you bastards have your eyes on your arses, and you didn't even leave a stool for me. You smashed it so cleanly." The shirtless boss waved his hand to signal his younger brothers to stop. The younger brothers stood aside and didn't dare to speak. From the performance of the younger brothers, we can see the status of this strong man among them. Zhao Yu Haoran walked quickly to Lü Yanxi, felt her pulse, and quickly pressed several acupuncture points on her body, including Qiantu, Juke, and Che eyes. However, Lü Yanxi did not respond at all. He predicted that something was wrong, and quickly said in a deep voice, "Send her to the hospital quickly." Suddenly there was another scream, and an old man sweeping the floor fell to the ground. There was an old woman standing next to him. It looked like she was his wife, for sure. Before Zhao Yu Haoran could help Lü Yanxi up, the old man had already started rolling on the ground. Under such circumstances, Lü Yanxi said to Zhao Yu Haoran without saying a word, "Quick, go and save them." He hurriedly came to the old man again, as if he remembered something, and Zhao Yu Haoran took out all the money from his pocket and handed it to the old man. "Uncle, here is the money. If it's not enough, you can always come to me for more. Is my old man okay?" "He should be fine, thank you." "Thank you." The old lady with glasses asked excitedly. After taking the money from Zhao Yu Haoran, she picked up her husband's body and strode towards the taxi at the intersection. "I should be the one saying thank you. Why do innocent people always get hurt?" Zhao Yu Haoran sighed as he watched the couple get into the taxi. After the old couple passed by, Lü Yanxi held Zhao Yu Haoran's hand tightly. She felt safe this way. Since leaving her scumbag, Lü Yanxi's life has been a mess. There is no happiness at all. Every day, there is nothing else except work. However, after a moment of calm, those gangsters became restless again. You fucking bastard, still looking? I'm calling you, come here." The fat man sat on the bench, holding a beer in his left hand and hooked his finger at Zhao Yu Haoran with disdain with his right hand. Zhao Yu Haoran smiled and walked towards him. Lü Yanxi couldn't stop him and followed him closely. At this time, Zhao Yu Haoran's heart had already been ignited. He wanted to vent all the depression he had been feeling in the past few days at this moment. The fat man was also at a loss when he saw Zhao Yu Haoran's expression. According to the logic of ordinary people, he would have peed his pants out of fear, but the guy in front of him actually. He asked in confusion, "Aren't you afraid?" "I'm afraid, of course I'm afraid, but if I keep being afraid, when will it end? I've been afraid for more than 10 years and have seen all kinds of difficulties." Zhao Yu Haoran said. "Par." The fat man slapped him again, wanting to take the opportunity to suppress the arrogant Zhao Yu Haoran and establish his authority in front of his brothers. Zhao Yu Haoran's heart was also filled with excitement. He nimbly slapped the fat man's hand with his backhand, opened his hand, and turned the fat man's hand over. "You bastard, you dare to hit Haoran." Lü Yanxi was next to Zhao Yu Haoran, and when she saw the fat man trying to hit Zhao Yu Haoran again, she slapped him again. Before the fat man could react, he was slapped again. His right hand felt like it was burning with pain, and the fat man yelled at the younger brother behind him in dissatisfaction. "Are you all dead, you bastards? Damn, I'm getting beaten, what are you still standing there for? Go ahead." Several thugs immediately rushed out, looking ready to make a move. Seeing that someone was about to hit Zhao Yu Haoran again, Lü Yanxi took the initiative to run in front of Zhao Yu Haoran and used her weak body to block any possible attacks for Zhao Yu Haoran. Her eyes were firm, but tears kept falling. He pulled Lü Yanxi into his arms distressedly. "Be good, don't cry. I'm fine. Zhao Yu Haoran smiled and used his hands to wipe Lü Yanxi's tears, but he couldn't wipe them all away. I won't let them hurt you. Lü Yanxi turned around and stroked Zhao Yu Haoran's angular cheek. Yeah. None of them can hurt me. These few pieces of trash are no match for me. But there are so many of them. A waste and a bunch of waste together have the same effect. It's okay. For her, no one can touch me again. Zhao Yu Haoran once again wiped the tears from Lü Yanxi's face with his palm, and the girl burst into laughter. That smile was pure and beautiful. Chapter 12, Indignation. The government projects that can now reach us civilian bosses are those that don't make money and have no oil and water. Lu Wenhao, Dao Lin and others all rely on the underworld to have their current careers. If they were engaged in fighting and killing, they might be able to do it, but this is a people's livelihood project. You can ask them to rob houses, but if you ask them to build houses and repair roads, they don't have the ability. This is just playing house. Zhang Datian said angrily, and with his energy, he seemed to want to eat the two people in front of him alive. Cao Wenshuan stood up and comforted him. Mr. Zhang, please don't worry. If what you just said is true, our relevant departments will definitely stand up to help you with justice and give you a fair explanation. Zhang Datian was so angry that his bald head became even more radiant. He threw the cup to the ground and cursed, damn it, don't mention any relevant departments to me. There are so many departments. If you go to them, they will definitely say that they don't care. Go to other relevant departments. In the final analysis, they are afraid of offending the underworld. Lu Wenhao and his gang are now taking over both the black and white. Not only is the underworld monopolized by them, but the current urban housing department has also been bought by them. Zhao Yu Haoran was a little impatient at this time. How could a child from the countryside understand so many relationships in society? He asked naively, Boss Zhang, you just said that this department was bought by Lu Wenhao. I have always had a question that I don't quite understand. Zhang Datian sat on the sofa and said, you say. If Lu Wenhao used the money to sell out department staff, he would definitely get a large sum of money from the company. As far as I know, not a penny has been deducted from the company's accounts. Even if he really falsified the accounts and deducted a large sum of money, where did he get the project funds from? As far as I know, Mr. Lu Wenhao is a man who values money more than anything else. Zhao Yuhao asked. Obviously, Zhang Datian was a little surprised by the question raised by the young man in front of him, and asked in surprise, who are you? Zhao Yu Haoran was about to explain his identity, but Cao Wenshuan spoke up first. He's a new kid, working in the Discipline Inspection Commission. As soon as he heard the word disciplinary committee, Zhang Datian's attitude instantly softened. Perhaps Zhang Datian had never expected from the bottom of his heart that Cao Wenshuan would actually bring someone from the Discipline Inspection Commission with him. After seeing Cao Wenshuan's expression, Zhao Yu Haoran seemed to understand something. Young man, let me tell you how he deducted the money. It's because this guy cares about money too much, so he deducted a large part of the project funds allocated by the government, and then used the remaining small part on the project. Moreover, the gangsters below will continue to cut corners on the original basis. The natural disaster hasn't even come yet, and the house collapsed on its own. You can imagine what such a project will look like. Can we feel safe living in it? Zhang Datian continued to scold. Some officials nowadays are out to exploit the people in their hometowns, bully the legal ones and protect the illegal ones. On my territory, my projects have been occupied and my subordinates have been squeezed out. These low-class methods are even more sophisticated than Hollywood gangster movies. They should not be involved in the underworld. I think they might as well make gangster movies to make money faster. This sentence was actually a complaint to Zhao Yu Haoran. Cao Wenshuan patted Zhang Datian on the back and said, Boss Zhang, calm down. If you have any troubles, you can come to our police. Our police force is very disciplined. Zhang Datian smiled bitterly and said, you policemen are indeed very disciplined. The higher-ups say something, and the lower-ups dare not interfere. At this time, Zhang Datian took a photo album from the side, opened it and said, I have 2 sons at home, how can I dare to call the police? If I didn't know you, I would have gone to your headquarters a long time ago. If I spared you and went to your police station to call the police now, it would be tantamount to walking into a trap and seeking death. I'm afraid my 2 sons would have been killed by Dao Lin and his men. Cao Wenshuan was not aware of this fact because he had worked at the criminal police headquarters before. The people there were quite disciplined. But as the old saying goes, every policy has a countermeasure. No matter how good the situation is at the top, it will be nothing when it reaches the grassroots. He never imagined that the atmosphere among the police officers at the grassroots would become like this. Cao Wenxuan said, "I have a solution, but we need your cooperation." Zhang Daqian's eyes almost popped out, and he asked anxiously, "What do you think?" "We need you to be an undercover agent for us and pretend to obey the arrangements of that gang. Once we have you as our insider, we will immediately arrest them once we have the facts of their crimes," said Cao Wenxuan. "Shit." Upon hearing this plan, Zhang Datian was so angry that he almost vomited blood. His face almost turned red, and he shouted again, "How the hell did you think of letting me be an undercover agent? I have to try my luck to go to your police station without being discovered by them. The chance of success as an undercover agent is even smaller than the chance of winning the lottery. You said you wanted evidence, but you investigated, and there is still no clue. Now you want me to be your undercover agent. When you said this, did you feel your heart beating faster? It's really shameless, right? We all have a clear division of labor in society. I am responsible for making money and paying taxes to support you people, and you are responsible for using our money to protect us. I think it's better for us not to cross this red line." Cao Wenxuan was sitting on the sofa, looking up at the big boss. Just as he was about to stand up, Zhang Datian pushed him down and said, Okay, I don't want to embarrass you. I've seen you fighting violence and protecting the good on TV before. You really work for the people, not just talking nonsense. For this reason, you are worthy of my trust. I believe you must have a way to solve it, but being an undercover agent won't work." The door to the living room suddenly opened as if a gust of evil wind blew. Everyone looked outside the door. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds passed. The crying became louder. A fat man over 1 meter tall ran towards Zhang Datian crying. Judging from his pitiful appearance, he should be his eldest son. Zhang Datian looked at the fat boy's head again and again as if it were a treasure. At this time, the security guard ran in panting. However, the security guard was not as lucky as the young master. His nose and face were swollen, and it was obvious that he had been beaten by someone. Zhang Datian stood up and kicked the security guard in the butt and cursed, "Fuck you, if anything happens to the young master, I will have your ancestors' graves dug up." Zhang Datian said to Cao Wenxuan indignantly, "You see, they can't do anything to me, so they use such despicable means to intimidate my son. I'll fuck his mother. From today on, I will never coexist with the underworld." Seeing that things have taken a turn for the better, Zhang Datian is definitely on their side now. This way, everything will be easy. Chapter 13 Caress. When Zhao Yu Haoran was about to take down the painting, Cao Wenxuan suddenly rushed forward and shouted, his face filled with an expression that could not be expressed in words. Zhao Yu Haoran was stunned for a moment, and after a few seconds, he said, "What's wrong?" "This thing." Cao Wenxuan hesitated for a moment and then said, "No, nothing, it's just that I don't like others touching my things, please don't mind it too much." After hearing this, Zhao Yu Haoran took a few steps back and said sincerely, "Yeah. I'm really sorry. I didn't know you had this habit. It's just that this painting is so beautiful that I couldn't help but want to observe it closely." The two of them looked at each other in an extremely awkward situation. He couldn't understand why Cao Wenxuan had such a big reaction when he just wanted to appreciate the painting of the beauty from a close distance. After 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Zhao Yu Haoran was ready to leave. Cao Wenxuan tried his best to keep him, but was rejected by Zhao Yu Haoran. Maybe no one expected that the other party would have such a big reaction. When he returned to the rental apartment, it was already past 7 in the evening. The weather in the North City was particularly hot in the evening. Zhao Yu Haoran's shirt was already soaked with sweat. Standing in front of the door, he frantically rummaged through his pockets trying to find something. He knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. It turned out that Zhao Yu Haoran left his key on the bed when he left in the morning and forgot to take it, which led to this situation. Because Zhao Yu Haoran did not go to work, Lü Yanxi was criticized by the competent department at the company meeting today. They said that her colleagues in her department could not supervise her properly, but she still wanted to supervise other people in the company. It was a pipe dream. Because of this incident, Lü Yanxi was in a bad mood all afternoon and left work early. Zhao Yu Haoran naturally knew that at this time, if Lü Yanxi didn't have anything special to do, she would definitely stay at home, because her circle of friends was very clean and she didn't have any particularly complicated connections to manage, so nightlife was definitely an unfamiliar word for Lü Yanxi. Zhao Yu Haoran, who was determined not to give up, smashed the door with a few more heavy hammers and said, "Lü Yanxi, I know you are at home now, please open the door for me quickly, I forgot my key at home." Lü Yanxi did not back down and shouted, "Har har, you even forgot your keys. Why don't you lose yourself? Where have you been all afternoon? You bastard, do you know that I am shouldering the pressure of the company's boss to help you with all kinds of things?" After Zhao Yu Haoran was silent for a few moments, he wanted to tell Lü Yanxi about himself and Cao Wenshuan, but he was afraid that Lü Yanxi knew too much and it would cause her unnecessary trouble, so he gave up and lied, "I have something to do, something about a client." Then he knocked on the door a few more times. Lü Yanxi had no intention of letting him in the bathroom today, but the way he knocked would definitely cause disgust among the neighbors. He was shameless, so she couldn't be shameless too. She put on her clothes and said, "Don't knock again, or I'll call the police." But Lü Yanxi's words did not frighten Zhao Yu Haoran. Instead, he knocked even harder, knocking on the door with both hands in turn, ignoring himself completely. Lü Yanxi was really helpless. He walked towards the small door in his slippers, pretending to be on the phone. "Hello, is this the police?" "Yes, I need to call the police now. A strange man keeps harassing me at my door." "Yes, he keeps knocking on the door and threatening me. I feel very unsafe and need to call the police. My home address is number 135, Baiyun Community, Beicheng City." After hearing the word, "call the police," the knocking on the door outside seemed to have evaporated from the face of the earth and disappeared in an instant. Lü Yanxi looked outside the door through the peephole and saw that there was no one outside. Then she opened the door and walked out to check around. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Yu Haoran took advantage of Lü Yanxi's carelessness and slipped in. Lü Yanxi was so angry that she picked up the phone and called Zhao Yu Haoran and asked, "Hey, where have you been? Are you really gone?" Zhao Yu Haoran ran into Lü Yanxi's bedroom and said, "How can I not leave? You've already called the police. I'm afraid they'll catch me and put me in a cage." Lü Yanxi listened to their voice and felt that it was quite close to her. Only then did she realize that the door of the room was pushed open. Sure enough, when Lü Yanxi went in, she found that Zhao Yu Haoran was holding her skirt and sniffing it. "What are you sniffing at my skirt for, you bastard?" Zhao Yu Haoran lifted up the skirt and placed it on Lü Yanxi's chest to compare and said, "Well, this skirt is good, but it may be a little small for the chest." It took Lü Yanxi a long time to realize that Zhao Yu Haoran was teasing her. Lü Yanxi snatched the skirt and threw it towards Zhao Yu Haoran, saying mischievously, "I let you tease me, you big bastard." The two of them were chasing each other and laughing in the small room. This feeling was something they had never experienced with each other before. Lü Yanxi suddenly felt a sense of happiness from the bottom of her heart. She carefully pinched Zhao Yu Haoran's neck with both hands and said, tell me what you did tonight. "You bastard, you got me scolded by the boss of the company." Zhao Yu Haoran raised his hands and stammered, Come on, I surrender, I really didn't mean to upset you, I really did have something to do. As you know, our department has just been established, and the office needs to be taken care of inside and outside, so when the company held a meeting, I didn't have time to rush back. You must think that I am not responsible for you and the work, and that I am hiding something from you, but there is one thing, I swear in front of the light, I absolutely did not intend to hide anything from you. Women are the easiest to deceive in this matter, especially when they are caressed by men. Lü Yanxi is such a woman. Her strong character always has a soft nature. As long as she waits for the caress of a man, she will appear extraordinarily charming. She leaned on Zhao Yu Haoran's shoulder without saying anything. Everything she could feel at that moment belonged to him, including the man in front of her. Chapter 14, The Turn of Times. Lü Yanxi stood up again, and the room immediately became quiet. Their tick-tick-tick. Sound of the rapidly turning electronic alarm clock on the bedside could be clearly heard. "Sister Lü Yanxi, I'd better pull a towel out for you. Your hair is soaked like a drowned rat. What a shame. You are at least a well-known figure," Zhao Yu Haoran said with a smile. Lü Yanxi stole a glance at Zhao Yu Haoran and saw him staring at her. His expression suddenly became very serious and his eyes were complicated. Lü Yanxi couldn't figure out what he was thinking. Although she didn't drink much last night, it seemed as if her memory of last night had been drained away and she couldn't remember it. However, since he did not greet their uncle when he got up this morning, he could not avoid the scolding. Since they have been in the same company, they must eat breakfast no matter what they do, but today, the current Lü Yanxi is no longer the articulate little girl. Liking someone is a very humble thing, and she does not like to do anything wrong in front of another person. No matter what, as long as he doesn't remember what happened last night and doesn't remember herself in bed last night, it's fine even if he scolds her to pieces. Lü Yanxi gently wiped her wet hair bit by bit. Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly stood up from the sofa and snatched the towel from Lü Yanxi's hand. You don't even wipe your hair like a girl, you twist it gently and slowly. It's really annoying to see. Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly became very angry and acted roughly. Lü Yanxi's head was like a small ball, being pushed back and forth by him, swaying unsteadily. Lü Yanxi closed her eyes tightly, straightened her neck, and let himself be rubbed like a kitten. Seeing that Zhao Yu Haoran had no intention of letting go, Lü Yanxi hurried forward and said, "My eldest master, let me do this." Then she reached out to take the towel from Zhao Yu Haoran's hand. Zhao Yu Haoran angrily threw the towel to Lü Yanxi. "Okay, let's do it. Although I haven't washed my previous girlfriend's hair very often, I think it's good enough to do such a small thing." Yes, it was dried. Lü Yanxi's hair stood up, like a little hedgehog fighting off an enemy, or like she had touched the static electricity ball in the Science and Technology Museum. Zhao Yu Haoran glanced at Lü Yanxi, quickly covered his mouth with the back of his hand, and coughed. Lü Yanxi clearly heard the suppressed smile in Zhao Yu Haoran's cough, and quickly reached out to smooth her temples. Seeing Zhao Yu Haoran sitting back on the sofa and looking at her angrily, she didn't dare to move, for she was afraid that her actions would anger this guy and it would be because of this small matter. Uncle Lin took out a comb and combed Lü Yanxi's hair in 2 or 3 strokes. "Zhao Yu Haoran, I was wrong. I got up too late today. I promise it won't happen again next time." Lü Yanxi tried her best to follow the principle of making a big deal out of a small matter, hoping that her kind words of advice would allow Zhao Yu Haoran to lower his attitude a little. After all, she had been his teacher. However, Zhao Yu Haoran looked Lü Yanxi up and down again. "Why did you get up late?" His tone was cold and annoyed. I slept late." Lü Yanxi buried her head even lower. "Why did you go to bed late?" Zhao Yu Haoran asked repeatedly. Lü Yanxi sighed in her heart. "Last night, your uncle got drunk to his heart's content. He rolled off the bed as soon as he was helped to it. He even complained that I was in the way. In the end, he treated me, a big person, as a big pillow and gradually calmed down. But soon, he had evil thoughts. In order not to alarm others and cause more trouble, I had to swallow my anger." Lü Yanxi didn't dare to blame Zhao Yu Haoran. Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly thought of what he said in the morning, and a hint of understanding flashed across his eyes. "Okay," he let out a long breath. "Are you feeling unwell?" Zhao Yu Haoran's cold tone finally warmed up a little. "Comfortable?" He had been whispering in her ear last night. "Baby, are you comfortable? Baby, do you want more? Baby, are you uncomfortable?" Lü Yanxi's face flushed, and Zhao Yu Haoran looked at her strangely. "Do you have a fever? Come here." Following the unquestionable command, Lü Yanxi quickly stepped forward. Zhao Yu Haoran stretched out a big hand and touched Lü Yanxi's forehead. The hand that covered her was big and soft. Lü Yanxi's body stiffened instantly. "Brother, what are you doing?" I don't have a fever. I'm fine." She avoided his inquiring gaze. Zhao Yu Haoran put down his hand and rolled his eyes at Lü Yanxi. "You don't have a fever, but your face is as red as charcoal. If you don't know, you might think you've been drinking." "I didn't drink." Lü Yanxi quickly defended herself. She couldn't make another mistake. She was afraid that Zhao Yu Haoran wouldn't believe her, so she breathed lightly at him. Zhao Yu Haoran was suddenly stunned for a moment, then he looked up and carefully examined Lü Yanxi, sweeping across her chest and from head to toe, and the hesitation in his eyes gradually faded away. "It's good that you know what I hate," Zhao Yu Haoran said slowly, standing up from the sofa. "Follow me." Zhao Yu Haoran reached out and took 2 pieces of paper from the desk in the study. It turned out to be Lü Yanxi's recent report card and subject attendance registration form in the company. Zhao Yu Haoran actually got these things, but this is terrible. Lü Yanxi's face turned pale. She looked at Zhao Yu Haoran miserably and became speechless. I can explain it." Zhao Yu Haoran sat on the chair behind the desk and slammed the 2 pieces of paper heavily onto the table. "What a joke this is. Yesterday, all the blame was put on him because of the official meeting, but today the blame suddenly shifted to Lü Yanxi. It's really a changing world. It seems like this person wants to mix several things together with himself today. This Zhao Yu Haoran is really cruel. Explain. Lü Yanxi looked up and glanced at Zhao Yu Haoran. Zhao Yu Haoran saw that her face was pale, her eyes flickered, and her beautiful long eyelashes opened and closed, as if they were two small fans stirring people's hearts. He felt inexplicably irritated and picked up a cigarette, but couldn't find a match to light it. Because he didn't tell Uncle Lin to do so, he didn't dare to follow him into the study. He took the cigarette from his mouth angrily and threw it on the table. Lü Yanxi was extremely embarrassed. She knew Zhao Yu Haoran's background. He was an outstanding person, especially Zhao Yu Haoran, whose outstanding performance in the company was astonishing. Chapter 15, Humiliation. At noon, Cao Wenshuan called. He didn't know from which channel he got the news that Lu Wenhao had arranged a meeting with some business tycoons in a tea garden for negotiations. Because the security work of this group of people was very detailed, Cao Wenshuan couldn't let anyone sneak in. He wanted Zhao Yu Haoran to be their insider and report the contents at any time. After Zhao Yu Haoran received the call, he pushed Lü Yanxi aside without saying a word, because he knew very well that if Lü Yanxi knew the content of the call, given her personality, she would definitely follow suit, so he simply threw her aside. After arriving at the designated location, Zhao Yu Haoran inquired about the news from Wang Fei of the Secretariat. It turned out that this was the Hongmen banquet planned by Lu Wenhao. He gathered together business tycoons from all fields in Beicheng City, ostensibly to have tea, but in fact to win over people's hearts. Zhao Yu Haoran came to the tea house, and he actually saw Zhang Datian from the second-floor window. Looking at these middle-aged men in the room, although I don't know their background, I can see that they are all afraid of Lu Wenhao. When Zhang Datian arrived at the tea house, Lu Wenhao stood up and walked to Zhang Datian's side as if he was welcoming a distinguished guest, and said with a smile, "President Zhang, the road is not easy to walk on, and it is really hard to walk all the way. Please sit inside, sit inside." Although Zhang Datian has always been prejudiced against Lu Wenhao, his current power does not allow him to say no to Lu Wenhao. However, after Zhang Datian sat down, Zhao Yu Haoran keenly discovered a problem, that is, there was a round probe-like thing on his tie. It seems that Cao Wenshuan has done a good job in his ideological work and he is willing to cooperate with the police, which invisibly relieves his pressure. Zhang Datian nodded towards Zhao Yu Haoran with understanding, pretending that it was the first time he met him. There were still a few vacancies on the seats next to me, but a long time had passed and no one had taken their seats. Lu Wenhao picked up his phone and checked the time, then said, "Okay, the time is up, so we won't wait any longer. The purpose of the Chamber of Commerce we formed today is to contract government projects in a planned manner. If they don't, it means they don't attach importance to it, and it can only be regarded as an automatic waiver." As their host, Lu Wenhao's opening remarks were naturally unusual. He smiled at everyone and said, "We are all old friends. Whose turn is it to make tea today?" The big guys in the audience, you looked at me, I looked at you, and we looked at each other, but no one took the lead. Seeing that no one answered, Lu Wenhao said awkwardly, "Don't look at me, everyone, just give your opinions. I am your convener today, but I don't necessarily have to be the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. I can speak independently." When Zhang Datian heard this, he naturally felt disgusted. What did it mean to give an opinion? He clearly remembered that last year, at a tea party of the Contractors' Chamber of Commerce, Lu Wenhao said the same thing. A young man who didn't know his place took the initiative to respond, but he was never seen again the next day. No one knew what he was up to. Zhao Yu Haoran suddenly heard the sound of running outside the door and wanted to go out to see what was going on, but was stopped by Lu Wenhao's eyes. The person who came in was an old man in his 60s, bald and short. After coming in, he kept grinning at Lu Wenhao. "I'm sorry, everyone. Mr. Lu, I'm really sorry. There was a traffic jam on the road and I couldn't get here." The short old man kept apologizing. Lu Wenhao was a little impatient, but since everyone had already come, he thought about it and decided to leave a seat for them. "Haoran, go move the empty chair away," Lu Wenhao said expressionlessly, staring at the tea in front of him. After the atmosphere eased a little, Lu Wenhao pulled the tea on the table over and said, "Since everyone is so polite, I won't give in. Let me make tea for you. Please follow the old rules and ask your bodyguards to leave and turn off your phones." After the order was given, the bodyguards retreated one after another, and the bosses turned off their mobile phones. However, even if it is the end of the world, there will always be unlucky people who rashly run in. Another short man ran in. Just like the first latecomer, the first thing he did after entering was to quickly put his hands together and bow, and said nervously, I'm sorry, brother Jew, I'm late. This road is really difficult to walk on. It's congested every step I take. I can't even get off the car and run here. This guy is old enough to be Lü Wenhao's father. I don't know what reason could make him so willing to humiliate himself. Lü Wenhao stood up and picked up a cup of freshly brewed water, and said with a smile, Boss Li, what car did you make when you came here? Boss Li smiled with his big white teeth, I'm driving a Toyota. Lü Wenhao poured the tea into his mouth and said, You are in a Toyota, while we are in Bentley, Mercedes, and BMW. No wonder you are stuck in traffic. If you are in a Toyota, you have no right to discuss business with us. What are you doing here? Forget it, you are old, and you are tired from the journey. Come and drink the tea in my cup, and then find a seat for yourself. Boss Li's forehead was already covered in sweat, and he could hardly stand. Boss Li stepped forward to take the tea that Lü Wenhao handed over, and drank it in one gulp without caring whether it was hot or cold. Then he looked around for a seat, but Boss Li's seat had already been vacated by Lü Wenhao. Everyone present lowered their heads and minded their own business, and no one dared to speak for Boss Li. Lü Wenhao sat down and asked, Can you still find a seat? Boss Li stood helplessly among the crowd like a dog, shook his head helplessly and said, No. I didn't find it. Lü Wenhao checked the time on his phone again and said, You're already half an hour late. In half an hour, we can earn a few Toyota cars. This also shows that you don't take this matter seriously. You look down on those of us who drive Mercedes-Benz and BMW. Since you don't want to continue playing with us, we have no reason to keep a seat for you. Then he yelled at Boss Li loudly, You old bastard, since you don't consider us brothers, then don't get in the way here. Go back and wait for a call. I'll let you know when there's news. Boss Li hurriedly asked for help from the people around him, but they still kept their heads down, and even needed Lü Wenhao's permission to breathe, so how could they dare to stand up and speak? Chapter 16, Dominance. It was obvious that Boss Li was a little ignorant and was standing there turning around anxiously. Lü Wenhao had been waiting for Boss Li like this dryly, and that look was enough to scare everyone present. Seeing that Boss Li didn't want to leave, Lü Wenhao told Zhao Yu Haoran next to him, Haoran, find someone to get him out. Zhao Yu Haoran came straight up to Boss Li without saying a word. He made a gesture of invitation with his hand and ran out dejectedly. Zhang Datian nervously took out a cigar from his cloth bag and put it in his mouth, not daring to say a word from beginning to end. After seeing Boss Li leave, Lü Wenhao began to get to the point, with Zhao Yu Haoran standing behind him. Regarding this round of livelihood projects that the government is soliciting from the private sector, I have learned from the Urban Construction Department that there are more than 20 companies interested in bidding. However, in my opinion, at least half of these 20 companies are unqualified. Excluding these, there are only about 10 companies. So before talking to you, I have already talked to their leaders privately, and they all gave me face and said that they have withdrawn from the bidding process. Now the only ones who are qualified are those of you present here. Lü Wenhao said as he handed tea to the aunties around him. Lü Wenhao continued hypocritically, We are all capable people. We should not speak in secret and we should not say anything. But I urge all of us to unite. If everyone does their own thing, then someone will be lucky enough to win the bid, but the asking price will definitely be very low by those officials. I hope everyone can make money in harmony and work together to make this pot of soup well. Don't let a bad apple spoil the whole pot of soup. Zhang Datian said, Since Boss Lu has said so, there must be a policy of making money through harmony, and we are all willing to listen attentively. Lü Wenhao replied with a smile, Policy, I dare not say, it's just a fantasy when I have nothing to do. I do have an idea here. If you are interested, we can study it together. Of course, we are not doing charity. To put it bluntly, I want to contract this project alone. Everyone knows that my company has developed too fast recently, and it is also difficult to turn over funds. I will only express my personal opinion on this project. First, the total investment of this project is about 1.5 billion. According to our lowest profit, the profit-sharing ratio is 30%, which means that the lowest gross profit is about 300 million. I am willing to take out 100 million for you to share, which is about 7 million for each company. Second, I learned from the channel that there will be many projects to attract investment in the second half of the year. In order to take care of everyone's business, I will not continue to bid. All the business in the second half of the year will belong to you, which can be regarded as some economic compensation for everyone. I have said this. Whoever is in favor or against, please say it now, so as not to cause trouble in the future. As soon as Lü Yanxi finished speaking, Zhao Yu Haoran noticed the changes outside. There was no one behind the screen just now, but now it was full of young men with machetes and tattoos. They were not here to do research, but to give orders to the Chamber of Commerce members. Zhao Yu Haoran exclaimed in his heart that there would be a good show to watch next, depending on whether they were prepared to take money or lives. Zhang Datian, who had the support of the police and was emboldened by the alcohol, said indignantly, "I oppose it. I strongly oppose this idea." This remark caused whispers from the audience, and Lü Yanxi immediately focused his attention on Zhang Datian. Zhang Datian threw the cigar on the ground, looked at Lü Yanxi and said, "I often tell people around me that Lü Yanxi is my idol. He is always decisive in everything he does and never drags his feet. But this time, after you snatched the project, you took away 500 million yuan without doing anything. What's left for everyone is to give out red envelopes, which will be passed down layer by layer. When we have 1 million in our hands, we will be thankful. We all have to eat. You only give us such a small amount of money. Do you still have a conscience?" After listening to Zhang Datian's speech, the bald man who was late just now was afraid that Lü Yanxi didn't hear it in his heart, so he kept following him and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Yes, he has some truth in what he said." One of Lü Yanxi's younger brothers, dressed in a suit and tie, came over from the door, leaned over and whispered in Lü Yanxi's ear, "There is a group of people outside, moving around the tea party." Because their voice was not loud enough for the bald man to hear, he hurriedly explained, "It's my brothers, I didn't let them come with me, they were worried that something would happen to me, so they had to come with me. Brother Lü, these country brothers have never seen the world, please don't be offended, don't be offended. Since the relationship has been torn apart, there is no reason to continue to be so cowardly." The bald man changed his face and said, "Brother Lü, this project is indeed a big project. I have said to Zhang Datian before that if our two companies join forces to bid, we will have a sure win. So, I also feel that it is indeed inappropriate to do this project according to your previous idea." Lü Yanxi laughed and said, "You are really thoughtful. I find that you are usually so reserved, but once you get to the negotiation table, you are very smart and can negotiate like Americans. Since you brothers have already spoken, then I will continue to make the final offer. First, each company can get 10 million. Second, when the project reaches the second stage, you two companies can work together. I have finished speaking, who is in favor and who is against?" Lü Yanxi stood up and asked everyone. The bald man looked at the bosses of the other shops and seemed to be so proud of himself. Zhang Datian was naturally very angry when he saw that he did not get any of the benefits. He pointed at Lü Yanxi's nose and said, "I still oppose it." Lü Yanxi was no longer polite and slapped Zhang Datian in the face. Zhang Datian fell to the ground along with the table. The younger brothers outside were pointing their guns inside. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little off, Zhang Datian still looked at the bald man, thinking that he would stand up and say a few words for him, but who would have thought that the bald man said firmly, "Brother Lü, I think this idea is very constructive. I'm the first to agree." "I agree." The other few people also followed the bald man and said that they would no longer continue to bid and were willing to support Lü Yanxi to become the only dominant company. Lü Yanxi did not continue to speak. In order to stop these guys from speaking, he said, "Okay, since everyone agrees, there is no need to continue. Everyone please go back. The remaining matters are between Zhang Datian and me." Chapter 17 The Murderer. Those who had taken advantage of the situation were eager to leave this place. Only Zhang Datian, who was lying on the ground unable to move, looked at Lü Yanxi and the others pitifully. Through Zhang Datian's incident, Zhao Yu Haoran has realized the dangers of this society. Who will be the next Zhang Datian? No one dares to deny it. However, Zhang Datian is their informant after all. If this guy is really forced into a corner, he will definitely tell about Zhao Yu Haoran's collusion with the police. At that time, Zhao Yu Haoran will be in a dangerous situation, which Zhao Yu Haoran himself will not allow. There are only two possible outcomes for Zhao Yu Haoran right now: either help Zhang That-ian out of danger, or get rid of him personally before he confesses the crime. This is a very bad strategy. If he wants to plead for Zhang That-ian, it is somewhat unrealistic. After all, Zhao Yu Haoran is of humble status and has no say. He can only wait and see. Lü Yanxi yelled at the people around him, "All of you get out." All irrelevant people around him have evacuated the room, and the only ones left are Lü Yanxi's close associates, including Zhao Yu Haoran. Lü Yanxi sat on the sofa and yelled at Zhang That-ian, who was lying on the ground, "I fucking saw it a long time ago. You came here to sabotage the meeting today. You didn't want me to be the only one in power. I tolerated you time and time again, but you didn't know what was good for you. If you didn't have someone to back you up, you wouldn't dare to do such a thing with your personality." Zhao Yu Haoran broke out in a cold sweat after hearing this. Just as he was about to step forward to plead for mercy, Lü Yanxi unexpectedly discovered the micro-probe on Zhang That-ian's body. He was about to step forward, but Zhang That-ian pulled out a pistol from somewhere, pointed it at Lü Yanxi and said, "My godmother." As he said this, he fired several shots, but because of his shaking hands, none of them hit the target. Zhao Yu Haoran saw the opportunity coming. Since his face was already torn, he thought that one death was better than two deaths. He took a vase and smashed it at Zhang That-ian. Seeing the situation, Lü Yanxi snatched the pistol and fired several shots at his chest. Zhang That-ian fell in a pool of blood. Lü Yanxi walked out from behind the wall and said to Zhao Yu Haoran, "I really didn't misjudge you. I just suspected that you were the traitor, but your contribution in saving me is enough to show your loyalty to me. I am very optimistic about you." After saying that, Lü Yanxi walked away and walked to the door. He said coldly to the young men around him, "Throw this old guy into the sea to feed the sharks." When he got home, Lü Yanxi had not returned from get-off work yet. Zhao Yu Haoran fell into extreme self-blame. His heart was shrouded in guilt. Whenever he turned off the lights, he could always feel Zhang That-ian's shadow filling the room. From time to time, he would tell himself meaninglessly that it was because of him that Zhang That-ian died, and that he was the evil murderer. Zhao Yu Haoran was extremely scared. He turned on the TV and the content inside attracted him. It was about a stage play. The man in the picture slowly raised his hand, his eyes calm and gentle, accompanied by a magnetic low voice, "Every bullet is a ray of my soul, every gunfire is a trace of my life. This performance needs more blood, my audience, what can you feel?" As the man uttered the last syllable, the stage suddenly fell into darkness. It's like a silent movie being played out in this noisy and prosperous strange city. The hazy night enveloped the square, and the red light on the stage suddenly lit up. An orange light illuminated the lower right corner of the stage. On the red carpet, a girl was half kneeling with her head slightly raised, revealing her childish face that looked out of place with her revealing clothes. A pair of slender fingers wearing white gloves slowly fell in front of the girl like the rhythm of flowing water, and a crisp snapping sound came from the other hand in the darkness. Bang! Another light came down from the lower left corner of the stage. It showed a thin figure, curled up in the corner, as if he was addicted to drugs, with his whole body convulsing and trembling. A crazy roar came from his pale face and scarlet eyes. The hearts of the audience were tightly grasped, and they marveled at the man's perfect acting. They stared at him intently, afraid that they would miss any excitement. A slender figure danced gracefully on the stage, every movement was so elegant, graceful, and amazing. Two more crisp finger snaps were heard in the rain and fog, melodiously and clearly reaching the audience's ears. Two orange lights appeared on the left and right sides of the stage. The warm light came on in the upper left corner of the stage, and a down-and-out man in a suit appeared. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the mahjong, poker, pai gow, etc. on the table in front of him. His wrinkled white shirt had begun to turn yellow from staying up late for so long, and he fiddled with the pai gow on the table in a disheveled manner. At the upper right side of the stage, as the light slowly came on, a beautiful woman covered in wounds curled up in the corner of a room. At this moment, a violent middle-aged man was like a mad beast, punching and kicking the young woman fiercely. The woman hugged her head tightly with both hands, her body curled up, her face twisted with fear, and she screamed hysterically. On the stage, the lights were on everywhere, like for silent movies. The camera was slowed down several times, and it was clearly visible that the beautiful woman's face was as pale as a patient, and the terrified look in her eyes was heart-pounding. The man's huge fist seemed to carry endless hatred, and blood soon dyed his fist red. Every scene seems real and happens clearly around us. The audience stared at the stage, attracted by the real scenes on the one hand, and impressed by the magician's superb skills on the stage on the other. Soon, a dark circular light fell from the center, and an elegant and noble figure appeared in the center of the stage. In the right hand of the man was an old European musket with a gorgeous blood-red flower carved on it. In his left hand, he held a black dress hat, and with that cold face, he looked like a cold, noble killer in a movie. I only show my true self to my audience. Soon, a cold voice emanated from all around the stage. The man put the hat on his head very elegantly. With a click, the dark light curtain disappeared instantly, and the man disappeared from the stage. Bang! 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 4 consecutive gunshots rang out on the stage like thunder, and the black bullets penetrated into the 4 figures in the light like lightning. Chapter 18 Million Annual Salary. Zhao Yu Haoran looked at the scantily clad underage girl on the stage, the drug addict, like a stone falling from a high altitude hitting the calm surface of a lake, which suddenly exploded with splashes of water. After a long time, everything returned to calm. On the stage, 4 figures slowly fell to the ground, their eyes filled with disbelief, blood flowing down their faces to the ground. 4 circular light curtains slowly fell, and the stage fell into darkness again. The audience below the stage covered their mouths and looked at the stage in horror. They were obviously shocked by what they had just seen. I never hurt anybody, it was just the show, suffocating. The faint voice came down from the stage again. There was dead silence all around, even the heavy breathing could be heard clearly. As 2 crisp finger snaps sounded from the stage, the dark stage became like the starry sky at night, like the Milky Way pouring down. Countless milky white spots of light floated in the air, then slowly fell to the ground and disappeared. It was unknown how long it had been before the man slowly squatted down, stretched out his finger, gently stroked the water on the stage, then put his finger into his mouth and took a sip. It seems like he is muttering, or pondering. Art must be above truth. And my interpretation is called human heart. In front of the red spider lily, the real art is killing. If life is a game, then I am the only one playing with it. Along with the pouring rain, the blood on the stage, which was gradually diluted by the rain, shone with a strange light, dripped from the edge of the stage to the ground, and then disappeared. Seeing this, Lü Yanxi opened the door and came in, and a faint light came out of the free TV in the room. Zhao Yu Haoran curled up in a ball, he looked very much like the person on the stage. He felt that Zhang Datian's death was related to himself, and he lived in the haze in his heart. Haoran, it's so dark in the room, why don't you turn on the light? Lü Yanxi asked softly. Zhao Yu Haoran glanced at Lü Yanxi without responding to her. He walked into his room alone and lay on the bed motionless like a dead person. Time passed by minute. After a long time, Zhao Yu Haoran received a phone call and left the rental house quietly. It was a call from Lü Wenhao. It was already past 11 o'clock in the evening. He asked Zhao Yu Haoran to go to a very remote place, a deserted factory site. Zhao Yu Haoran knew very well that this call would come sooner or later. Because of what happened during the day, Lü Wenhao's concerns about Zhao Yu Haoran had been dispelled. In his heart, Zhao Yu Haoran could be trusted by him. When he arrived at the wasteland, Lü Wenhao had been waiting there for a long time in a suit. Zhao Yu Haoran now has to pretend to be open-minded. Since things have developed to this point, no matter what the outcome is, he can only move forward step by step. He smiled as he came to Lü Wenhao's car and said, I never thought that our idol, Mr. Lü, is also a nocturnal animal. It is said that leaders like you have special rest schedules. You must have something to call me out so late, right? Lü Wenhao got out of the car, sat next to Zhao Yu Haoran, rolled up his sleeves and said, more than 20 years ago, I never slept more than 5 hours a day, and I was hanging out all day long. Zhao Yu Haoran was surprised and asked, are you rich people also so busy? He looked at Zhao Yu Haoran, then turned his head to the city scene in front of him, pointed and said, oh, I just can't bear to leave the outside world. Look at the rich people driving Ferraris and Bentleys on the road. It's called a busy street, and the people wandering on the roadside can only be called a cold street. To be honest, since the first day you came to my company for an interview, I have been particularly interested in you. I have discussed you with your leader. Although you have not been here for a long time, I have heard a lot of pertinent comments about you. My department is short of a manager, and I want to know more about you. Zhao Yu Haoran lowered his head and looked calm. The only thing he had to do now was to play hard to get. Since Lü Wenhao was willing to believe him, he still had to remain reserved. "Thank you, Brother Lü, for your kindness, but you don't have to consider me," Zhao Yu Haoran said tactfully. Lü Wenhao asked in surprise, "Why? Can you give me a reason?" "You have to think clearly. You can imagine that the people who want to work in my department can line up from here to the government building." Zhao Yu Haoran smiled and said, "Reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, wait." Lü Wenhao said, "Fuck, I just liked you a little bit, but now I am disappointed in you. Since you have already rejected me, why did you come all the way to see me?" Zhao Yu Haoran replied, "Even if the deal fails, there is still righteousness, so I still want to come out to see you. Thank you for condescending to take the initiative to ask me out." He now understood Lü Wenhao's routine, and Zhao Yu Haoran had a more long-term plan in his heart, so he chose to reject Lü Wenhao's offer. Lü Wenhao said angrily, "You are talking nonsense. You might as well tell me on the phone. It's a waste of my time and energy. I don't have to waste my golden sleeping time to come all the way here." Zhao Yu Haoran was like a child talking to an elder. Nuno said crookedly, "Compared to you, I am just a child. Children are vain. I heard your excellent evaluation of me." The more Zhao Yu Haoran refused, the more Lü Wenhao wanted to keep Zhao Yu Haoran. He said helplessly, "You guy, aren't you afraid that I will have someone throw you in this wasteland? You still don't tell me the truth. I can take the initiative to ask you out so late and give you a job. This is enough to show your excellence. I like to do things in equal exchange. In other words, I never do things that will put me at a disadvantage. It's also because I'm a businessman, but I've already suffered a lot for you. Don't push your luck. Just tell me directly if you have any requests." The two stood opposite each other, and Zhao Yu Haoran said, "Since you said so, I dare not play hide and seek with you anymore. Let me be honest with you. People die for money and birds die for food. If I can get $1 million annual salary, I will join you." Lü Wenhao laughed and said, "You really overestimate yourself. Who do you think you are? Do young people nowadays always ask for $1 million annual salary? I can only give you half of it at most." Zhao Yu Haoran shook his head and said disappointedly, "So in your eyes, Mr. Lü, my value is only this much. Money is the cruelest and most real existence. With it, you can do a lot of things." Lü Wenhao asked, "If I give you 1 million, what can you give me in exchange for the equivalent?" Chapter 19, Enemies. Zhao Yu Haoran smiled and said, "First of all, I know that you have many things that you don't want outsiders to know. However, I am a member of the Disciplinary Inspection Committee of the Board of Directors, and I specialize in dealing with those shady matters. I think if I use this thing in exchange, it is still worth the price." After Lü Wenhao got in the car, he rolled down the window and said, "Fuck you, you're so cruel. 1 million is 1 million. I hope you won't let me down. Wait for my call tomorrow." The next day after returning home, Zhao Yu Haoran slept until noon before being woken up by Lü Yanxi. When Zhao Yu Haoran came to the living room, he saw that the woman had prepared a table full of delicious dishes. He didn't understand what was going on, so he asked in fascination, "I say, what's wrong with the young lady today that you've gone to all this trouble?" Lü Yanxi giggled and said, "There's nothing wrong today. It's just my personal hobby. Come sit down and taste my cooking skills." As soon as Zhao Yu Haoran sat down, he didn't even have time to pick up his chopsticks when the phone rang. It was Lü Wenhao calling. He glanced at Lü Yanxi's expectant look, ignored her, and hung up the phone. Lü Yanxi didn't ask either. She sat opposite Zhao Yu Haoran and kept looking at him. However, the phone rang again. Lü Yanxi asked seriously, "Whose call is this? Why don't you answer the phone?" Zhao Yu Haoran glanced at Lü Yanxi, smiled and said, "It's okay, he's a real estate salesman. I'm a nobody who makes tens of thousands of dollars a year. Wouldn't it be humiliating for me to answer such a call?" After Zhao Yu Haoran hung up the phone, it rang again. Lü Yanxi glared at Zhao Yu Haoran and said, "Since the call is not important, why not just block that person?" Zhao Yu Haoran almost spit out the food in his mouth that he hadn't swallowed yet. He blocked his boss, probably because he didn't want to continue working in this place. On the one hand, he faced Lü Yanxi's expectations, but when facing his boss, things couldn't happen more than 3 times. He made 3 calls in a row so anxiously, there must be something urgent. He looked helplessly and decided to answer the phone. He covered his mouth and asked softly, "Boss, I'm sorry. I was just inspecting the grassroots and didn't have time to answer the phone." Lü Wenhao did not pursue the fact that he did not answer the phone and said, "That matter has determined that I will give you an annual salary of 3 million. I hope to be able to exchange it for an equivalent value in the future." When Lü Yanxi heard someone lying, she got up as if she had eaten gunpowder and stood aside. Zhao Yu Haoran wanted to pull her hand, but she stood up too quickly and he didn't have time to hold her hand. Zhao Yu Haoran took a deep breath and said, "Boss, I'm having a hard time right now. Can I call you this afternoon?" Lü Wenhao didn't give Zhao Yu Haoran any chance to breathe, and directly scolded him in a decisive manner. "Fuck you, don't take advantage of the fact that I like you and play tricks on me again and again. If I find out that you dare to play tricks on me, I bet you won't see the sun tomorrow. I want your answer now, 1 word for yes, 2 words for no." The meal that Lü Yanxi had painstakingly prepared was ruined by Lü Wenhao's 3 phone calls. She was so upset that she ran out of the door in anger. Zhao Yu Haoran didn't bother to think and said directly, "Okay, I understand." After Lü Wenhao got the answer, he immediately put down his chopsticks and chased after Lü Yanxi. He held her hand on the street and said helplessly, Sister, what are you doing? Can you stop being so childish? I'm doing my job. If you have any opinions about me, you can tell me in person. I will definitely change if I can." Lü Yanxi broke free from Zhao Yu Haoran's hand and said angrily, "Zhao Yu Haoran, I'm telling you, don't think that every woman will like you just because you look good. You lie to another person in front of me like this, which makes it really hard for me to trust you again in the future. You are so sneaky in doing everything. Why can't you be open and above board? There is a big difference between you and the Zhao Yu Haoran I knew before. At least he says what he thinks and never says one thing and has another." Zhao Yu Haoran could not tolerate anything except the 3 million. People would change, and under the temptation of money, a salary of several million a year was irresistible to a poor young man. He said arrogantly, "You just heard it, that's 3 million a year. I, Zhao Yu Haoran, have been living among the poor for more than 10 years. I don't want to continue like this." Lü Yanxi pointed at Zhao Yu Haoran's nose and said angrily, "You can go and make money, but if you make money against your will, money that is inconsistent with your principles, will you feel comfortable if you make 10 million or 100 million? Zhao Yu Haoran shook his head and said blankly, "These 3 million have something to do with principles. I am just a small employee. Why do you say I am so noble?" Lü Yanxi stroked her hair and said, "We both know clearly what our responsibilities are. The purpose of the company's establishment of the Commission for Discipline Inspection is to check from our level and investigate the heads of each subsidiary. I am not your person. What you do has nothing to do with me. I can't control it. I have to go to work in the afternoon. See you at the company." After having private contact with people around Zhao Yu Haoran a few days ago, Lü Yanxi had already known about Cao Wenxuan's existence. What she didn't know was the kind of cooperative relationship between him and Zhao Yu Haoran. After returning to the company, because of a quarrel with Zhao Yu Haoran, Lü Yanxi secretly handed over to Cao Wenxuan a piece of evidence that she had recently investigated about Lü Wenhao cutting corners in a construction project and causing death. When Cao Wenxuan received the evidence, he hesitated for a long time. He couldn't judge the authenticity of the material, but he knew the fact that Lü Yanxi and Zhao Yu Haoran lived together, which made him feel at ease. At that time, Cao Wenxuan did not give the evidence to the police superintendent, but handed it over to a good friend who works in journalism. He wanted to use the power of the media to promote the progress of the relevant departments, increase exposure, and leave no breathing space for those corrupt elements. At noon that day, Cao Wenxuan and his group went to the mall for lunch as usual. While walking on the street, they saw a bulletin board informing about Lü Wenhao's construction project, a mysterious case in which 15 construction workers died last year due to shoddy work and was reported by a mysterious person. The exposure of this case has made the public have a new understanding of the collusion between the investment promotion department and officials from certain departments. Walking on the streets, one can hear people's voices of appreciation everywhere. However, because this case involved many people at the top of the company, in order to protect themselves, they pushed all the responsibility onto Lü Wenhao alone. Lü Wenhao was at the center of the storm and could not move. The huge pressure of public opinion forced Lü Wenhao to retire. Because Lü Wenhao's whereabouts were unknown, all the cooperative projects with the Urban Construction Department and the Road Administration Department were also cancelled. Just when they were immersed in joy, Cao Wenxuan saw his benefactor, Lü Yanxi, in a boutique. Chapter 20 Late Night Party. Cao Wenxuan walked in and took the initiative to greet him, saying, "What a coincidence." Lü Yanxi glanced at Cao Wenxuan, then continued to look at the things in her hand and replied, "Yes, what a coincidence." On the one hand, Cao Wenxuan wanted to find a topic to strike up a conversation, but on the other hand, he didn't know how to talk to a girl. He stood opposite her dryly. After a while, he said, "Thank you very much for the report you sent. Otherwise, our police wouldn't have made such a fast progress on the case." Lü Yanxi turned around and smiled, "What's the big deal? I'm just an ordinary citizen. I'm just speaking according to my conscience. I'm not like some people who take money but don't know what shameful things they do." When Cao Wenxuan saw Lü Yanxi preparing to wear a hairpin, he quickly handed it to her, put it in front of her eyes and praised, "It's so beautiful." Lü Yanxi's eyes rolled around and she asked awkwardly, "What do you mean by beautiful?" Cao Wenxuan smiled shyly with a teasing look in his eyes, "They are all beautiful. This hairpin will definitely look better if you wear it on your hair." Seeing how much Lü Yanxi liked the hairpin, Cao Wenxuan straightened it and said, "Can you give it to me? I want to give it to a beautiful woman, is that okay?" Lü Yanxi originally thought that since Cao Wenxuan had already said so, he would definitely give it to her, but this guy just didn't play by the rules. However, since he had already said it, she could only swallow her loss in silence. She smiled and said, "Well, since you like it too, then you can buy it first and prepare to give it to that girl. That girl must be very beautiful." Cao Wenxuan didn't say anything, but put the hairpin away, went to the cashier counter and asked the waiter to pack it in a boutique box, then he took it back and handed it to Lü Yanxi's chest and said, "Yes, as you said, the girl is very beautiful, and good things should always be given to beautiful girls." Lü Yanxi declined, unwilling to accept the reward without any merit. Cao Wenxuan was a little embarrassed and said with a smile, "Don't get me wrong, you gave me such a big gift, I just gave you a hairpin, just treat it as a gift in return, maybe there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future." After delivering the food, it was time for dinner, so Cao Wenxuan said tactfully, "Miss Lü, how about we have dinner together?" Lü Yanxi checked the time on her phone. It was already past 7 in the evening. If she didn't go back at this time, who knows what Zhao Yu Haoran would do? It would be really unbearable to make her angry at that time. However, it was hard to refuse Cao Wenxuan's kindness. It was not good to always reject him, so she took the initiative to say, "Then it's better to obey than to be respectful. It's better to do it today than to wait for a day." Cao Wenxuan took Lü Yanxi to a Western restaurant and had already asked his colleagues to book a seat there in advance. As soon as the two arrived, a junior colleague who was unaware of the situation yelled at the female colleague who was smoking next to him, "Hey, miss, look at the people around you, you are the only one smoking." The female colleague countered, "What's wrong? Who said smoking is not allowed? Stand up for me." The two of them were like children playing house. Cao Wenxuan said with a smile, "Yanxi, I hope you don't mind. We are like a family. We are used to it." Lü Yanxi replied, "I don't mind." Cao Wenxuan walked up to Lü Yanxi, led her to his colleague and asked her to sit down. When police officer Xiao Li saw that everyone had arrived, he was about to ask the waiter to serve the food and wine, but before he could ask, the waiter came over with a bottle of red wine. "Hello, Mr. Cao. Someone has reserved your wine." The waitress leaned over and said softly. Cao Wenxuan looked up and asked in surprise, "Who is it?" The waitress replied, "It's Mr. Lü Wenhao, and he asked me to tell you that to celebrate your solving a big case, I'm giving you this bottle of Lafite worth over 100,000 new Taiwan dollars." Without waiting for Cao Wenxuan's reply, the waiter continued, "I hope Mr. Cao will accept this bottle of wine. Mr. Lü Wenhao said that if you don't accept this bottle of wine, our store will be in trouble." Lü Yanxi continued with the red wine and said, "Since it was sent by the boss, let's drink it. Please help us open it." Logically speaking, some people will never be able to drink red wine that costs hundreds of thousands of yuan per bottle in their lifetime, and police officers only make a few hundred yuan a month, which is unbearable to even think about. However, Cao Wenxuan is a policeman with a strong sense of justice, so how could he accept an evil gift? Besides, given Lü Wenhao's means, how could he give him such good wine? While the waiter was opening the wine, he glanced at the female police officer, indicating that she was playing a prank. After the waiter opened the wine, he said to Cao Wenxuan respectfully, "The wine has been prepared for you, but because this bottle of wine is very valuable, I suggest that you wait 20 minutes to let the wine dilute the oxygen, and it will taste better." The policewoman pulled Xiao Li's hair and said, "No, I think I'd better let Xiao Li try it first. He loves drinking the most." Xiao Li held his mouth tightly. He knew that the female police officer Xiao Huo had already done something in the quilt. If he drank this cup of wine, it might cause some trouble. However, everyone was looking at him. It was impossible for him to shirk responsibility. The waiter poured half a glass and began to taste it seriously. Within 2 seconds, Xiao Li said, "Captain, I'm afraid there's something wrong with this wine." The waiter came forward and said, "That's impossible. This wine has just been opened. Do you want to try it?" Xiao Huo said. The waiter took a sip from the wine glass and almost spit it out. It turned out that when they tampered with the wine before, they put the unused chili oil in. This was really powerful. The waiter hurriedly apologized, sorry, it's our fault." Cao Wenshuan returned the wine to the waiter and said, "It's okay. This is not your fault. Please return the wine to him for me. Also, please tell him that people with ulterior motives cannot be trusted wherever they go." After the waiter left, Cao Wenshuan and his group were laughing so hard that they couldn't stop. Cao Wenshuan asked, "Xiao Li, what did you pour into the wine just now?" Xiao Li stuck out his tongue and took the bottle of chili oil out of his pocket. Xiao Huo grinned and said, "You also sacrificed for the collective. I'll drink first to show my respect." This was the first time that Lü Yanxi drank in the name of a party after graduating from college. She drank so much that night that she had a wrong feeling that she admired Cao Wenshuan so much. After 3 rounds of drinking, Lü Yanxi's body had begun to feel hot. If she continued like this, she would sooner or later become a laughingstock. She was probably the only one who knew her alcohol tolerance best, although Cao Wenshuan would occasionally help her block the toasts. Chapter 21 Playing with Fire and Getting Burned. Old Man Wang clasped his hands together, looking as if he was thinking hard, and stepped forward and said, "Yes, I know them. Those 2 people often come to my place for dinner. They are old acquaintances." Seeing how slowly Wang Lao was talking, the younger brother in front of Wang Hu knew what he wanted, so he threw 200 yuan in front of him and asked him to pick it up, saying, "Don't talk nonsense, hurry up." Old Man Wang didn't care. He bent down to pick up the money and said with a smile, "Oh, I remember now, but I don't remember it clearly. Old people tend to forget things." Old Man Wang took the money with a smile, shone the flashlight at the street light, and then carefully put it into his trouser pocket, patting it with his hand. He then said, "Go straight toward Guangming Road, turn south at the 3rd traffic light, turn left at Jiaoxia Avenue, there is a crossroads on the left, don't turn, keep going forward and you will see a lighthouse. After passing the lighthouse, the 3rd community is where they usually live." Wang Hu was confused and turned left and right. He asked the brothers around him with a squinting eye, "What the hell are you doing? Do you remember clearly?" The younger brothers behind him looked at each other and said in one voice, "No, big brother." Wang Hu walked up to Old Man Wang and took out a few 100 yuan bills from his pocket again, and kept yelling at him, "I'll give you another 100 as a reward for your hard work, but you have to lead the way for me. You can't let that woman slip away from me no matter what." Old Man Wang squinted his eyes and looked reluctant, but he didn't explain it clearly to these gangsters. "What? Isn't it enough? Old man, being too greedy is no good. I warn you not to refuse a toast. I have plenty of ways to find them." Wang Hu stared at the old man fiercely, and the fat on his face kept shaking. He knew that this look was more than enough to scare the timid people, let alone an old man who had never seen the world. As expected, as soon as Wang Hu's harsh words came out, Old Man Wang's high spirits instantly softened. After Old Man Wang agreed, Wang Hu and his group followed him. According to the route he pointed out, there were alleys ahead and the road was very narrow, so riding a bicycle was a bit unrealistic. They walked to an abandoned construction site, and Old Man Wang stopped walking forward. "We're here. This is where you are going today." Old Man Wang turned around and said to Wang Lao Hu with a smile, "We're here? Are you kidding me? This is fucking." Wang Hu looked around in confusion. It was pitch dark and he suddenly felt uneasy. "Old man, are you kidding us? Even birds don't shit here, how can there be anyone there? I think you want to die here." When Wang Hu's men saw that they were being fooled, they started to cry out like wolf cubs. They acted very well and were more professional than any fucking actors. A gangster shouted arrogantly, "If our boss is not allowed to see anyone today, We brothers will stretch your muscles and help you open up your ren and do meridians, and by the way, we will blow your ass." The others were stunned when they heard the curse, and then they all burst into laughter. "Long hair, you are really brave, you don't even let the old man go." Chang Mao was grinning foolishly, ashamed and wanted to dig a hole. This was his colloquialism when threatening others, but he didn't expect to use it on an old man today. Habits, it's all habit that caused all the trouble. Chang Mao just joined the gang today and showed off his power. He was so arrogant, afraid that others wouldn't know that he was a gangster. The old man smiled coldly, watching this group of hooligans still fighting and laughing without knowing how to live or die. He walked up to Chang Mao and said seriously, "Young man, I'm warning you, don't play tricks on a person of my age. When I was out there, you were still drinking from a milk pot. Don't get yourself killed in the end." Chang Mao was instantly ignited by old man Wang's words. Fuck, what's wrong with me just talking to you? Why don't you hit me?" Chang Mao's eyes almost popped out. "Shut the fuck up!" Wang Hu yelled, stopping his men from fighting. His face was livid, his eyes were glaring at the old man who led the way. He asked with a sneer, "Brother, which way are you from? Since you have led the brothers here, there must be an ambush. Let your people show up. Since we are all in the underworld, there is no need to hide. Whether it is a one-on-one fight or a group fight, we have to put the ugly words in front. The one who is knocked down must not be unconvinced. We are not afraid if they dare to call the police." Wang Hu was instantly intimidated by old man Wang's aura. He had just been released from prison and had been arrested for fighting. So even though he kept yelling about fighting, he was actually very scared in his heart. When encountering something, the calmest people on their faces are often the most terrifying. Old man Wang just glanced at them, and their domineering tempers subsided a lot. The other thugs then realized that something was wrong, and they reached into their pockets for knives, ready to act when the opportunity arose. Old man Wang stood in front of everyone and said with a smile, "Ambush? There is no ambush for me. I am alone." Wang Hu was shocked. The other party actually had an ambush. He glanced around with the corner of his eye and did not find the ambush the old man said, but he was still very guilty. He couldn't believe that an old man dared to play tricks with these vigorous gangsters. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been scared to death. "Har har, since we are all brothers in the underworld, don't hide it. Come out. Don't let the brothers laugh at you, let's do it openly, and after the fight we will go home. After that, we will not interfere with each other. We still have important things to do, and we don't have time to play with you here," Wang Hu said guiltily. The old man looked very angry, pointing at himself and said, "My ambush was already set up by me. Are you blind? Didn't you see it?" Wang Hu snatched the flashlight from the old man's hand and looked around. He suddenly realized that the surrounding area was flat and plain. Not to mention hiding people, even a bird could be seen clearly. Seeing that the old man was alone, Wang Hu's domineering spirit burned again. "You old man, do you seem to be looking for trouble? Or did you run away from a mental hospital?" Wang Hu cursed. "I've been watching you little hooligans for a long time. You do all kinds of evil things on a daily basis. You molest young girls in the street, smash people's businesses, and beat up young women. It wouldn't be a pity even if I let you die 100 times. If you were not in a busy city and it was difficult for me to take action, you would have been killed by my knife long ago," Old man Wang said with great dignity. Chapter 22 Caught Off Guard. Lü Yanxi said cautiously, "At most I will have to pay a fine. No matter what, they won't stop me from running for the general manager of the Greater China region because of the reform. I have brought a lot of benefits to the company before. Even if I have no merits, I have worked hard." Wang Lao, who threw the tissue in his hand to the ground and sneered, "You are very smart today. You answered correctly. That's what the directors thought. They want Dao Lin to be the general manager of the Central China region. Although this person doesn't use his brain to do things, he is much more obedient than you." Hearing the words, Dao Lin, Lü Yanxi instantly became energetic as if he had smoked a lot of opium. He patted the sofa and asked, "Brother Wang, is there no room for remedy? I am willing to do whatever you ask me to do, as long as you let me participate in the election." Wang Lao, who took a deep breath and said through gritted teeth, "What do you think? You are the one who caused this mess. Since you made a mistake, you must learn to take responsibility. Even a 3-year-old child knows this. If I were to judge you, you should not participate in this election and give it to that idiot Dao Lin. Lü Yanxi stood up, looked at Wang Laohu, and said angrily, well, I was going to give you 10 million in activity funds, but now it seems that there is no need. Speaking of money, Wang Laohu also got angry. He pointed at Lü Yanxi and yelled, fuck you. I've been running around in the underworld and the white world because of you these days. I've been worried sick. The blame you've taken is enough to make several meals for you. All I do all day is drink. I'm about to throw up my intestines. I do all this for that son of a bitch. And if I hadn't come forward today, you would have been fired by those directors and handed over to the judicial authorities. How can I let you drink, laugh at and show off in front of me? Lü Yanxi stood there like a statue, silent. Wang Laohu cursed again, why don't you fart? You're farting with your head on your ass. I saved your life, 10 million is not a lot of hard work, right? You've been with me for so long, from a small clerk to now under one person and above 10,000 people. Have I ever received any benefits from you? Am I the one who takes care of everything for you behind your back? Damn it, you don't use your brain when you speak. If you were half as good as Dao Lin, you wouldn't be in your current situation. Lü Yanxi stood less than a meter away from Wang Laohu, his mouth twitching as he said sincerely, thank you so much for your cultivation. This is all my fault. This 10 million is my gift to you for your medicine. I'm sorry that you worried about Yanxi's affairs. It's not so much a sincere tone as the change in his expression. Who knows how many alpaca horses are galloping on the endless prairie in his heart at this moment. After Lü Yanxi stormed out of Wang Laohu's office, Myra followed him anxiously. Along the way, Lü Yanxi kept cursing, fuck, I was tricked. The old dog took 10 million from me and wanted to cheat me. He also threatened me and wanted the police to intervene. Myra asked, what about the company nomination? Lü Yanxi was so angry that he kept kicking the car next to him and yelled, fuck, these sons of bitches, they never thought of letting me compete for the manager of Da Huazhuang. After something happened to me, they just threw me aside. I will fight these ungrateful wolves to the death even if I die. At night, in order to discuss the next situation, Wang Laohu colluded with Master Qianzuan to go to his residence to discuss things. Due to Wang Laohu's personal power, he had no way to refuse. In order to conceal the truth and prevent others from finding out, he sent a substitute in the name of a clone to comfort the people who came to the temple to worship. After Qianzuan arrived at Wang Laohu's residence, the first thing he saw was not Wang Laohu himself, but a female corpse lying in the open-air swimming pool. Upon closer inspection, he found that the woman was actually a toy assigned by Wang Laohu for him to play with. The corpse had blue and red spots on her body and she must have been abused before she died, otherwise she would not have died in such a way. The last time he came to her for pleasure and sex, she was still fine, but in the blink of an eye, she was gone. Qianzuan covered his eyes and dared not look any longer, and went straight to Wang Laohu's room. When Wang Laohu saw Qianzun coming, he did not wait for Qianzun to ask questions, but asked in a questioning tone, what on earth did you give her to eat? I know you have kidney deficiency, but there is no need to increase the strength of the medicine like this. Qianzuan stammered, I didn't give her anything to eat. After we had sex last night, I sent her directly back to you. If something went wrong, it must have happened on your end. When Wang Laohu heard that this heavenly lord was pushing the responsibility onto him, he immediately flew into a rage and asked, what the hell do you mean by that? Don't forget who gave you everything you have now. I gave her to you out of kindness, but you fucking killed her and now you're pushing the blame onto me. What the hell is that? The atmosphere in the room seemed to be frozen. Qianzun was sweating profusely. No matter what, Qianzun dared not quarrel with Wang Laohu. He was quick-witted and said in a flattering way, boss, maybe this woman stole something to eat after she came back. Wang Laohu pointed at Qianzun and said, I don't care how she died. Although she died here, she is a believer I gave to you. You must take full responsibility for her. Qianzun replied, brother, don't worry, I will handle this matter myself and won't trouble you. So does anyone know that you came to my place now? Wang Laohu asked nervously. Qianzun said confidently, I used my clone to come here, there is no way anyone would know that I came to your place tonight. Wang Laohu lit a cigar with trembling hands and ordered, find someone to dispose of the body now. I'll give you an hour. If you can't, you can figure out how to live your future life. After he left, Tianzuan immediately ordered his men to pack up the woman's body and send it to the nearest crematorium. After the cremation, he took the woman's ashes back to his temple without anyone noticing. The next morning, Cao Wenshuan was called to the office by his boss. All his subordinates thought that his boss wanted to reward Cao Wenshuan for the case, but no one expected the outcome to be so unexpected. Cao Wenshuan's direct superior, Zhang Biao, is affiliated with the Central Criminal Police Department and is also considered the top leader in the police force. Cao Wenshuan is very respectful to him and never disobeys his orders. Zhang Biao used courtesy before force, affirming that he had disrupted the case, which dealt a heavy blow to the criminals. But then he changed the subject, and Cao Wenshuan suddenly felt a cold sweat on his back. Zhang Biao said as usual, from today on, you will be on paid leave. Don't get involved in any big or small matters in the police station. Take a good rest. Cao Wenshuan naively thought that this was a special treatment from the higher-ups, and said with a smile, "Boss, it's okay, I don't need a vacation. I think the case of bid rigging for the project is not over yet. If we continue to investigate it in depth, we will definitely catch some big fish. Why do you suddenly let me take a vacation at this critical juncture?" Chapter 23, Tenderness. Zhang Biao had long anticipated that Cao Wenshuan would keep asking questions, so he simply called the police from the archives room to come over. A few minutes later, the police knocked on the door and came in. Zhang Biao handed the files he had sorted out in advance to the police and instructed, "You must manage Chief Cao Wenshuan's files well and keep them strictly. No one is allowed to take them out without my approval." The police officer glanced at Cao Wenshuan standing next to him, but did not refute anything and replied, "Yes." In front of outsiders, Cao Wenshuan did not dare to get angry with Zhang Biao, so after the police from the archives room left, Cao Wenshuan asked helplessly, "Captain, it is unreasonable for you to do this. I want to ask for an explanation from the higher-ups. You can't convict someone for no reason." Zhang Biao's expression was like a firecracker that was instantly lit. He pointed at Cao Wenshuan and said, "Today, it's useless for you to find the chief superintendent. This order was issued directly from above. Do you still need a reason? You acted on your own without permission from above. Now the above blames you and wants me to be a scapegoat for you? Lu Wenhao, Wang Laohu, Dao Lin, these extremely evil people, how can a small criminal policeman like you touch them?" Cao Wenshuan asked, "Is it because of this incident? As a police officer, it is wrong for me to investigate a criminal? This is ridiculous." Zhang Biao bit his lip and said, "Yes, it is because of this matter. You used police resources without your superior's permission. I can remove you from your position according to the law. When you are on vacation, think carefully about where you went wrong. Be careful to understand the situation and protect yourself." Cao Wenshuan never imagined that one day his old boss would be dissatisfied with him for upholding justice. After the steps of first using courtesy and then using force, Zhang Biao said in order to stabilize Cao Wenshuan, "Wenshuan, since you joined the police force, I have been like your teacher, bringing you to your current position. You want to uphold justice and want to make contributions, there is nothing wrong with that. When I was as young as you, wasn't I the same? But the older you get, the more you have to learn to expand your vision. There are so many cases out there that can make you meritorious, why do you have to remember this one case?" Cao Wenshuan's eyes were full of confusion, full of disgust towards the man in front of him whom he had almost admired before but now hated. He took a few steps back and whispered, "No, you have never been my teacher, and I don't have a teacher like you. I am ashamed of you, you are unworthy of the word police." After leaving the police station, Cao Wenshuan did not feel any regret about Lu Wenhao's case. On the contrary, because of Zhang Biao's warning, Cao Wenshuan became stronger. He now has no way to mobilize the resources in the police station, but there is still a spy outside who he had previously deployed, Zhao Yu Haoran. He invited Zhao Yu Haoran to a dilapidated factory in the suburbs. He knew that Zhao Yu Haoran, who was in a high position, was his only bargaining chip to trip up Wang Laohu and others. As long as Zhao Yu Haoran was willing to use his connections to help him, it would not be difficult to turn defeat into victory. Zhao Yu Haoran is still immersed in the fantasy of his dream of rising. He has even thought about retiring when he is in his 40s. When he received the message from Cao Wenshuan, Zhao Yu Haoran was quite conflicted. On the one hand, he was thinking about his bright future, but on the other hand, Cao Wenshuan held the handle on him. Faced with a dilemma, Zhao Yu Haoran decided to wade into this muddy water. When he arrived at the dilapidated factory, Zhao Yu Haoran was still unaware that Cao Wenshuan had been fired. He came here not to agree to anything from Cao Wenshuan, but to find his final relief. Cao Wenshuan was hiding in a dark corner with wet hair. Zhao Yu Haoran didn't dare to get too close to the man in front of him. Zhao Yu Haoran covered his nose and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Cao Wenshuan did not tell Zhao Yu Haoran about his suspension, but gave Zhao Yu Haoran orders as usual. "I want you to sneak into Wang Laohu's office tomorrow and steal his account book. As long as there is evidence that they have falsified the accounts, this one thing can bring down his business empire." Cao Wenshuan was immersed in his own reverie. Now he had lost his mind, and his mind was full of how to end this battle without gunpowder as soon as possible. He did not even think about whether Zhao Yu Haoran was willing to wade into this muddy water. After all, Wang Laohu's office was no different from other places. As expected, Cao Wenshuan's request made Zhao Yu Haoran feel very disgusted. Zhao Yu Haoran struggled with his hands and shouted, "Are you sick in the brain? You think about yourself in everything. Have you ever thought about my feelings? You are asking me to die. Do you know that?" Cao Wenshuan excitedly stepped forward, held Zhao Yu Haoran's hands, and pleaded, "Brother, believe me, this is the last adventure. This is the motherland's need to test your loyalty. You must follow orders unconditionally." Zhao Yu Haoran shook off Cao Wenshuan's hand and cursed, "Fuck you. When the motherland needs me, I will go even if you don't tell me. But now it's already 11 or 12 o'clock in the evening. The motherland has already gone to bed. Fuck you, are you still asleep? Wake up. I'm not a righteous warrior, I'm just an ordinary citizen. Brother, I have to eat too. Killing Zhang Datian is not enough, do you want me to be a scapegoat too? Don't even think about it. That's it. Don't come to me again, you idiot." Cao Wenshuan was shocked by Zhao Yu Haoran's strong rejection. He originally thought that everyone would follow his direction, but he didn't expect that there would be a mistake at this stage. Cao Wenshuan, who was angry and embarrassed, didn't care too much. He went up and punched Zhao Yu Haoran, knocking Zhao Yu Haoran to the ground, and scolded, "You have already signed a life and death agreement, you have to do it even if you don't want to." There were unexpected clouds in the sky, and suddenly there was lightning and thunder, and huge raindrops fell from the sky. The two men in the rain started to fight with each other. Zhao Yu Haoran was no match for Cao Wenshuan, who was a policeman. Within just a few minutes, he was beaten by Cao Wenshuan to the point where he could hardly get up. Instead of standing up and getting beaten, he would rather just stay on the ground. After both men calmed down a little, Cao Wenshuan squatted beside Zhao Yu Haoran and said only 4 words to him, "Take care of yourself." Then he quietly disappeared into the dark night. When Zhao Yu Haoran, with wounds all over his body, returned to the community, he thought that Lü Yanxi should have been asleep at this time. However, when he looked up, the familiar floor compartment was still lit, as if waiting for his return. Zhao Yu Haoran looked at the scratches on his hands, then looked at Lü Yanxi's room, and finally did not disturb Lü Yanxi. He quietly walked up the dark stairs, and did not even alarm the voice-controlled lights. He opened the door and returned to his room. Just as he drank a glass of cold boiled water, there was a soft knock on the door. "Yes, Lü Yanxi." Zhao Yu Haoran felt soft and sour in his heart, and a lot of tenderness emerged. He had suffered so much injustice, and in the end only this woman he had just met and lived with could comfort him. Chapter 24 Internal Dispute. "Where have you been so late at night? Do you know it just rained and you left me alone at home?" Lü Yanxi pounded Zhao Yu Haoran's chest and muttered coquettishly. Zhao Yu Haoran came closer, hugged Lü Yanxi gently, and whispered to comfort her, "Lü Yanxi, be good, don't cry, I'm fine. I was in a bad mood, so I went to the park to sit for a while and accidentally fell asleep. I'm sorry. Next time I go out, I will tell Lü Yanxi that I will never leave you alone at home again." Lü Yanxi stood up, pointed at the stains on Zhao Yu Haoran's body, and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with you? Aren't you going to explain it to me?" Zhao Yu Haoran looked at Lü Yanxi and smiled, "What can I say? It's raining so hard today, it's easy to get like this." After Lü Yanxi recovered from her shock, she said seriously, "Okay, let me tell you something. What are you going to do about the company's false accounting? There is a speed in this world called the speed at which women change their attitudes. Everything was fine in the last second, and suddenly became like this in the next second." Zhao Yu Haoran thought that the company's affairs had long been over, but now Lü Yanxi brought this matter up again to make things difficult for him. Zhao Yu Haoran put his left hand on Lü Yanxi's hair and said earnestly, "Don't worry about this matter, okay? First of all, you and I are ordinary people. The most important thing in front of us is survival. Wake up, we are not as good as those big shots." Lü Yanxi knocked Zhao Yu Haoran's hand down with her right hand and questioned, "I opposed you being the Commission for Discipline Inspection from the beginning. It was you who insisted on taking the position by force. Now that you have taken over, are you going to just let it go?" Zhao Yu Haoran's reaction was much smaller, and he said in a gentle voice, "Yes, I came to the company much later than you, but I am no worse than you in terms of human relations. If we want to fight with others, we must first have the capital to speak. Although we are both on the board of directors, we have no real power. We can just turn a blind eye to some things and let them go. If someone doesn't like us one day, it will only take a word to solve our problem, just like crushing an ant." Lü Yanxi waited for Zhao Yu Haoran with her feet, pouted and said, "I'm serious with you. I believe you are not that kind of person." Zhao Yu Haoran smiled and said, "Well, then Miss Yanxi, tell me, what kind of person am I?" Lü Yanxi approached Zhao Yu Haoran and said, "I can tell from your eyes that you are born to be a spy. You have a pair of eyes that are good at hiding behind people and looking into the darkest corners of bad guys' hearts, and then calculating how to give these bad guys a fatal blow. Before, I know that you have cooperated with the police because you still have a sense of justice in your heart, so when you find out that some people in the company are doing bad things, you will never stand idly by. But because of the special nature of your work, you haven't found the best time to expose the news, so you have been hiding and working as an underground party member." What I said, right? Zhao Yu Haoran was a little surprised. How could this guy Lü Yanxi know so much about him? Zhao Yu Haoran hated those bad guys in the past, but because of various things when he entered the society, there were too many things that were different from what he had imagined. It was really difficult for him to do those righteous things. He had already had a falling out with Cao Wenxuan tonight, and if he really wanted to do it, it would not be so easy. He tried his best to pretend that nothing had happened. He smiled and tapped Lü Yanxi's forehead, saying, "With your IQ and imagination, you'd be at a loss if you didn't write a novel. You're so busy with work all day, and you still have time to think about this. I know what I do, but there's one thing. You, Lü Yanxi, are the biggest beneficiary of what I do. I don't spread rumors, I don't break the law, and I don't frame people. This is how we make a living. If you want to live longer, you have to be moderate in everything." Lü Yanxi said to Zhao Yu Haoran, "You have been doing things that are not rumors, illegal, or framed, so, your reputation in the company is like this now, treacherous, mean, flattering, and bootlicking. You follow Lü Wenhao all day long and act as his little brother." Zhao Yu Haoran knew that if the two of them continued chatting like this, he would definitely not be able to withstand Lü Yanxi's questioning, so he forcibly carried Lü Yanxi into the room. The next day, Cao Wenxuan mobilized almost all of his connections in the news media industry to create a false illusion that due to Zhang Biao's inaction, the judicial department's crackdown on bidding rigging for projects was progressing slowly and was even paralyzed at one point. As soon as this news came out, it immediately attracted the attention of Yin Qingshu of the North City Anti-Monopoly Office. While some people were frowning, others were jubilant. Because Lü Wenhao was suppressed by the bigwigs of the board of directors, all the directors began to no longer support Lü Wenhao, and Lü Wenhao's status plummeted. At this moment, a competition speech for the new manager of Da Warzhorn was being held in the company auditorium. Dao Lin brought a group of people to entertain themselves, saying nonsense that no one would believe. "Thank you very much for the company's cultivation of me over the years. I have everything I have now. I will definitely do my best to gain more benefits for the company." He had just finished reading half of the speech when the sound of gongs and drums was heard outside. It was the congratulatory gift that Lü Wenhao had prepared for him. A pair of high-spirited lion dancers rushed in through the door, with Lü Wenhao standing behind a group of bodyguards. Everyone instantly shifted their attention from Dao Lin to Lü Wenhao. This press conference was originally carefully prepared by Dao Lin, but he never expected that Lü Wenhao would pop up at this time. Lü Wenhao and Myra stood in front of Dao Lin's microphone. As Lü Wenhao's spokesperson, Myra politely bent over and said to Dao Lin, "Mr. Dao, can I take your microphone?" If journalists were present, Dao Lin would have rolled up his sleeves and confronted the two men to protect his image, but Dao Lin smiled and said, "Suit yourself." After Myra thanked them, she took the microphone and said to all the journalists in a spokesperson's tone, "Good morning, journalist friends. We hope you don't mind taking advantage of this stage today. Our President Lü has something important to inform you about today. Lü Yanxi took the microphone, gave Dao Lin a contemptuous look, then turned to the journalists and said with a smile, I, Lü Yanxi, announce to you today that from this second on, I will no longer serve as the General Manager of the External Relations Department of Xinjiang Company. Instead, I will run for the General Manager of the Greater China region this year as a shareholder holding 40% of Xinjiang Company. As for the previous rumors that I will not participate in the election, those are all rumors. Please do not spread rumors. Changing the subject, Lü Yanxi walked to Dao Lin's side, handed the microphone to Dao Lin and said with a smile, I will compete with Mr. Dao in a fair, just and open manner. Lü Yanxi reached out his hand to Dao Lin, but Dao Lin didn't appreciate it and pushed him away. His eyes were full of anger. It was okay for him to fight with him in the company normally, but today, such an important day, he even came to sabotage him. At this moment, Dao Lin even thought about killing Lü Yanxi with a knife. Seeing that something was wrong, the person next to him reminded him, Mr. Dao, this is a public place now. Pay attention to your manners. We can't lose to others in etiquette. The two of them then shook hands hypocritically and laughed together. In the afternoon, Lü Yanxi came to the Guandi temple, slaughtered chickens and sheep to worship the gods, and asked Guan Eri to bless him to get a favorable position in the election. After this day, Xinjiang Company collapsed. The company was divided into two factions. One was the puppet Dao Lin, who was in charge of the board of directors, and the other was the radical faction of the major shareholder Lü Yanxi. The two were equally powerful. If Xinjiang Company was making a fortune before, it was losing money now. In terms of competition, Lü Yanxi adopted the bribery and intimidation system. Even a small government official would be bribed with a large sum of money, and those who were stubborn would be threatened with intimidation. The difference in ideological positions between Lü Yanxi and Dao Lin, who were once good friends in the company, turned into enemies overnight, and they even fought over a table. The sales department was cut off from all sales channels by the external relations department because of their stance. In order to retaliate against the external relations department, the sales department joined forces with other departments to suppress it. The north and south gates of Xinjiang Company were filled with large photos of Lü Yanxi and Dao Lin. They couldn't sit still during the break and tried every means to dig into the other party's corners, wanting to make the other party collapse from the inside, causing a small-scale social unrest. At Lü Yanxi's suggestion, his men escalated the internal dispute to the social level and even placed a bomb in the opponent's car, causing the once prosperous Tianyi Street to be eclipsed. Lü Yanxi, who came from a gangster background, was no longer surprised by such things, because he had long expected that if he did not take action, all that would be left for him in the future would be endless darkness. Chapter 25, Clone Technique. As the company's internal disciplinary inspection and supervision department, all the storms immediately leaned towards Zhao Yu Haoran. Dao Lin and Lü Yanxi pushed Zhao Yu Haoran to the cusp of the storm. No matter which side he chose to stand on, the result would be the same for Zhao Yu Haoran. As a nobody, he couldn't afford to offend the big guys after all. Because of the election, they made the business and transportation departments of Beijing City a mess, but the wealthy Xinjiang Company had no intention of stopping. Government officials ran to both sides to seek peace, hoping that the two sides could reach a settlement and jointly build Beijing City. This effect is exactly what Lü Yanxi wanted. His campaign is in full swing, so how could he easily buy into their ideas? After returning from the party in the evening, the Minister of Urban Construction came to seek peace. Lü Yanxi pretended to be seriously ill and refused to meet him. He deliberately made things difficult for him and made him wait for a long time before arranging a meeting. Lü Yanxi walked out of the room wearing a white bathrobe and slippers, not looking formal at all. In contrast, the Minister of Urban Construction was dressed in a suit and holding several expensively wrapped gift boxes. After the meeting, the Minister of Urban Construction said anxiously, I'm very sorry to bother you so late at night when you're not feeling well. But as you know, our Beijing City has been paralyzed recently because of the election between you two business tycoons. The mayor knows that we have a good relationship, so, let's put it this way, the Public Security Department is ready to send out the anti-explosion team. If your company has not yet reached an internal negotiation to resolve this disagreement, the government department will impose restrictions. Lü Yanxi patted the minister's shoulder and said with a smile, Minister, you are serious. Devoting yourself to the urban construction of Beibei City has always been my greatest pursuit. But you know that it takes two hands to clap in this kind of situation. Even if I agree to negotiate, I can't make the decision on their side. If they continue like this, I can only accompany them to the end. Anyway, I have nothing I can't afford to lose now. The Minister of Urban Construction wiped the sweat from his forehead and said softly, "So, you have to get a result as soon as possible, so that we can avoid unnecessary sacrifices on both sides. A happy ending is not a good thing, so we have to ask President Lü to mediate this matter in person and not put too much pressure on us." Myra came over at this time, holding a few white pills in her hand, walked to Lü Wenhao's side, and said with concern, "Sir, it's time for you to take medicine. The doctor told you that you have been too tired recently, so you should pay attention to the combination of work and rest." Lü Wenhao took the tea and said in a weak voice, "I don't think it's that serious. I just rested at home for a day, and so many things happened outside. It shows that your ability to control the situation needs to be strengthened. Then I won't sleep tonight. For the development of Beijing City, I will risk it today. Let's go and see what the situation is now. However, for the sake of fairness, I will call our company's disciplinary committee department to conduct it under their supervision." "Sure, you can find anyone you want," said the Minister of Urban Construction. After Myra got the signal, she contacted Zhao Yu Haoran to go to the scene to carry out the disciplinary supervision of the Commission for Discipline Inspection. Zhao Yu Haoran was as uneasy as an ant on a hot pot. After receiving the call, he did not wake up Lü Yanxi and went to the scene alone. Hearing that Lü Wenhao agreed to save him from the dire situation, the Minister of Urban Construction was so happy that he almost jumped up. However, seeing that Lü Wenhao was only wearing a bathrobe, he felt that it was a bit inappropriate, so he asked, "Mr. Lü, you are wearing a bathrobe, isn't it a bit inappropriate?" Lü Wenhao coughed and said, "Let's go. There's no need to be so particular now. If you're away for even a minute, who knows what kind of trouble will happen." Zhao Yu Haoran also arrived at the scene early in a dusty manner wearing only a gown. Tianyi Street. The traffic jam here was so severe that it was difficult for cars and even pedestrians to move half an inch on the road. The police who came to suppress the situation stood in the crowd with shields, waiting for the words from above to crush them. From afar, a police car with its sirens blaring was seen speeding towards the center of the crowd. Zhao Yu Haoran guessed that it must be Lü Wenhao. With such a large formation, even the police gave him enough face. There was no one else in Beijing City who had such ability. Zhao Yu Haoran stepped forward and opened the car door for Lü Wenhao. After getting out of the car, Lü Wenhao glanced at Zhao Yu Haoran, then stood next to the minister and said with a smile, "I asked you to come so late, not for anything else, but just to let you be a fair witness. Don't wait until I take over and those dogs bite back. You must record the truth." Zhao Yu Haoran stood behind Lü Wenhao and said with a smile, "You are joking, how could Mr. Lü use such tricks?" Myra went up and slapped Zhao Yu Haoran, cursing, "You little bastard, why are you so careless with your words? What little tricks are you using? Shut up." Lü Wenhao called Myra and, with the help of others, walked towards the noisy crowd. Reporters swarmed over like a hornet's nest. Lü Wenhao waved his hand to signal to the crowd. He spoke hypocritical words to the people who didn't know what was going on, words that even he himself didn't believe. However, because of his influence, the bustling crowd gradually dispersed as soon as he said it. By calling the reporters and giving them the manuscript, they didn't have to think about it and said on TV, under the mediation of the powerful Lü Wenhao late at night, an accidental riot was finally extinguished. Lü Wenhao himself was willing to stand up and take the initiative to reconcile. He was also willing to pay for all the medicine and condolence money for the injured people this time. After the polite words, Lü Wenhao, a competing candidate, said, "I am very sad about this situation. I didn't expect that the people who supported me would be so radical. I thank you, but please be a little more rational." Everyone focused their attention on the shining Lü Wenhao, and they completely forgot about the injured people lying on the ground. Their life and death seemed to be destined and unimportant to Lü Wenhao's campaign. In order to quickly resume production and solve the case as soon as possible, although Cao Wenxuan had been stopped by his superiors, he never relaxed. He ordered his cronies to investigate Wan Laohu in secret, but unexpectedly learned from Wan Laohu's mother, who was a nanny, that the murder not long ago was committed by Qian Zun and Wan Laohu, and he also knew that the ashes were placed in Qian Zun's temple. In this way, both human and material evidences were complete. To hit the snake at its most vulnerable point, one must capture the leader first. Now that Lü Wenhao is a big tree that attracts wind, he can only start with Wan Laohu. On the second night after the riot on Tianyi Street, terror could not stop people's desire for happiness. The same was true for Qianzuan. He walked through the streets and alleys as usual, looking for his female believers. Not long after, at a transit point, Qianzuan found himself being followed and suddenly he didn't know what to do. He instinctively asked Wang Laohu what to do next. Qianzuan hid beside the trash can and called Wang Laohu and asked, "Boss, I've been followed these days and I don't know what to do now. Can you give me a solution?" The first thing that came to Wang Laohu's mind was whether he had been implicated. Qianzuan was just an empty title. He said nervously, "Does anyone know that you called me?" Qianzuan looked around and replied, "No one is here. I'm hiding in Cheney Street now." Wang Laohu said quickly, "We two don't know each other well. You figure it out yourself. I don't know you. Don't call me from this number in the future. Don't be so fucking crazy." He had an indescribable feeling in his heart. If the police found out about Qianzuan, he would definitely be in trouble. He called his bodyguards and ordered them to deal with Qianzuan tonight and put the blame on Lü Wenhao, wanting to give Lü Wenhao a warning when he was on the rise, and then walked away with a glass of wine in his hand, smiling. Soon, Cao Wenshuan found Qianzuan, who also noticed Cao Wenshuan's presence and slipped away to a crowded place when he was not paying attention. A magical scene appeared. Qianzuan walked less than 10 meters away from him and suddenly turned into two people, clones. One went to the left and the other went to the right. Cao Wenshuan's eyes almost popped out. In order to deal with this situation, Cao Wenshuan divided his men into two groups, and he chased after the one on the right. Because they were in a downtown area, Cao Wenshuan did not dare to act rashly. He just kept a distance from him and did not let him out of his sight. Wang Laohu refused to save him, so he could only rely on himself. Qianzuan called and asked people from his temple to come and deal with him. In a small barbecue stall, Cao Wenshuan's arm was bleeding in the hustle and bustle. Only then did he realize that the relationship between him and Qianzuan had entered a white-hot state of tension. Cao Wenshuan immediately notified other police officers through the intercom, "We were ambushed. Someone shot at us. Be careful in the crowd and protect yourself." Gradually, more and more people began to flock in Cao Wenshuan's direction, but he didn't know that he had become the target of those thugs. Chapter 26, Dry Wood and Fierce Fire. Less than 2 minutes after the warning was sent to other team members, one of them was shot. That team member came to Cao Wenshuan's criminal police team because of his admiration for him, but within a few weeks, he passed away. Cao Wenshuan felt extremely heartbroken. But at this juncture, the criminals had little time left for him, and he had no time to feel sad. He followed the bandits all the way and held onto them tightly without letting go. However, the enemy was numerous and we were few. There were too many Qianzuan's killers. Although Cao Wenshuan and others had received special training, it was difficult for them to find a good strategy when facing such a situation. The crowd became very chaotic because of the gunshots, and there was no way to tell who the enemies were. They might easily kill you in a place where you least expected. The further Cao Wenshuan walked forward, the more he felt something was wrong. Everyone around him was fleeing in the opposite direction, and only those few sturdy men were walking towards him. He wanted to notify other team members to come for support, but his walkie-talkie had been dropped somewhere during the chase. Cao Wenshuan felt inexplicably panicked. This was the first time he had felt this way since he became a policeman. A big man came up from the left rear of Cao Wenshuan. He was about 1.9 meters tall and blocked Cao Wenshuan's view from behind. Because the back was blocked, Cao Wenshuan could only move forward and slowly got away from the crowd. Suddenly he felt something stabbed him and felt extreme pain on his body. He bent down and touched his stomach, blood gushing out. Cao Wenshuan's pants were already bloody. The scene was very miserable. After a few minutes, the pedestrians on Cheney Street were almost gone, leaving Cao Wenshuan alone, curled up next to a telephone pole. Cao Wenshuan was dying and he no longer had the strength to continue fighting. He knew that if he died, all his previous efforts would be in vain. He must hand over this responsibility to the next person before he closes his eyes and lead his police officers to continue fighting against Wang Laohu, Dao Lin, Lü Wenhao and others. However, the police force might have been bribed by Wang Laohu, and his immediate superior Zhang Biao had long betrayed his beliefs. He was pale, and he tried his best to open his mobile phone and write on the memo, "Find Zhao Yu Haoran." Policeman Xiao Li, after searching the north lane, was just about to evacuate when he saw his captain lying on the ground. He was stunned, and his backbone was instantly destroyed. In a panic, he picked up the walkie-talkie to notify other teammates to meet up here. After a few minutes, most of the team members arrived, but Cao Wenshuan no longer had a pulse. Xiao Li held Cao Wenshuan in his arms and shouted loudly, "God, you are not fair, you are not fair." The other team members became depressed one by one. Faced with this sudden accident, no one knew how to adapt to the next actions. They had no direction of their own. A police officer sitting in front of Xiao Li noticed the screen in Cao Wenshuan's hand was still lit, pointed at his phone and said, "Everyone, look at what the captain is holding." Xiao Li picked up the captain's cell phone, saw the message on the screen, and instantly understood what the captain meant. Xiao Li knew everything about Zhao Yu Haoran. Before, when Cao Wenshuan made friends with Zhao Yu Haoran, Xiao Li was present. He also knew that at the moment only Zhao Yu Haoran had the ability to lead them to continue fighting against evil. As for those big guys in the police station, it was impossible to contact them at least for now. After the captain's reminder, Xiao Li had already figured out how to carry out the next work. As a backbone force in the fight against crime, Cao Wenshuan's departure is undoubtedly a great pity, and it is bound to attract widespread coverage from major media outlets, and may even cause further panic among the people. The next day, all the screens of businesses in the commercial streets and various streets removed the endorsements of ordinary stars. The largest and most authoritative news TV station in Beijing City also issued a condolence statement in the shooting incident that occurred on Tianyi Street in Beijing City last night. The famous anti-gang hero Cao Wenshuan unfortunately died heroically in the anti-gang operation. We strongly condemn this criminal behavior. At the same time, the spokesperson of the police department emphasized that any behavior that smears and challenges the bottom line of the police will eventually be punished by law and judged by the people. Wang Lao, whose plan can be said to kill two birds with one stone. After Tian Zun escaped, he would never have thought that the thugs Wang Lao who sent to him eliminated his mortal enemy who had been investigating him for many years, and also cleverly directed the disaster to Lü Wenhao. As we all know, when Cao Wenshuan took over Lü Wenhao's case, he had already grasped many facts of his crime. Facts are not equal to evidence, but as a fuse, it is easy to make people think that the mastermind behind the scenes must be Lü Wenhao. It was a little after 8 o'clock in the morning. Lü Wenhao had just gotten up when he was called by Myra to come to the reception room. While watching the morning news, Myra clapped happily beside him. Although Lü Wenhao had some surprises, compared with Myra, his were insignificant. "What are you laughing at? Eating honey early in the morning?" Lü Wenhao said. Myra poured a glass of water for Lü Wenhao, then handed it to him and said with a smile, "That's right, it's sweeter than honey. Boss, you are now a celebrity in North City. No one doesn't know your name. You appear in the news more times a day than the mayor. And, after Cao Wenshuan died, at least you are much safer with the police, and you have one less mortal enemy." Lü Wenhao pressed Myra under him, pointed at her and cursed, "Fuck you, you stinky bitch, you better explain to me clearly, what are you thinking about now? I seem to hear something else from the sound of your laughter. If you can't explain it well, I will beat you to death." Myra was talking nonsense like a big fool, and seemed to be unaware of Lü Wenhao's current feelings. He was surrounded by enemies on all sides, and although it was exciting to dance on the cusp of the storm, he would be doomed if he was not careful. In a blink of an eye, the election for the manager of Da Warshorn has reached the final stage. Lü Wenhao and his people went to the company's conference room to make the final overall defense, but they were unexpectedly disrupted by Dao Lin's gang. The two groups of about several hundred people crowded in the small square in front of the company. There was a sticker on Dao Lin's propaganda vehicle saying "Murderer, Lü Wenhao," and from time to time a loudspeaker would come out to shout. Dao Lin sat in a convertible car, holding a high-explosive megaphone in his hand, and said, "Severely punish the murderer." It is rumored that Lü illegally bid for a livelihood project. Because the police knew the facts of the crime, they launched an attack on the commercial street. Such people cannot be our leaders. We firmly resist. The two groups of people were only 1 meter apart, which is the distance between water and fire. The two piles of dry firewood could naturally catch fire at any time.